pulling them back together. If you love slow-burning rivalry turning into something dangerous and irresistible, you are in the right place. Disclaimer. This audio is an adaptation inspired by Rachel Reid's Heated Rivalry. It highlights mature romantic moments centered on chemistry, longing, and emotional closeness rather than explicit detail. This video is intended for adult audiences and focuses on storytelling atmosphere and connection. Prologue. The knock at the door came almost 40 minutes later. It had been enough time that Shane had almost convinced himself to leave, to put an end to this foolishness. But of course, he hadn't. And if the knock had come hours later even, Shane would still have been on that sofa, waiting for it. He opened the door. "What the fuck took you so long?" he asked, annoyed. "We were celebrating. Big win tonight, you know." Shane stepped back to let the tall, smirking Russian man into the apartment. "I got away as soon as I could," Rozanov said, his tone less teasing. "Didn't want to draw attention, right?" "Sure." And that was the last word Shane got out before Rozanov's mouth crashed into his. Shane gripped him with both hands, pulled him, kissed Rozanov breathless. "How long do you have?" Shane asked quickly when they had broken apart for air. 2 hours, maybe? Fuck. He kissed Rozanov again, rough and needy. God, he needed this fucked up thing. "You taste like beer, Rozanov. You terrible gum you chew. Is so I don't smoke." "Shut up." They grappled and maneuvered each other until they reached the bedroom, where Shane shoved Rozanov roughly against a wall and continued kissing him. He felt the familiar slide of his rival's tongue in his mouth and slid his own teeth that had been fixed and replaced God knows how many times. A lot tonight. But they didn't have time for a lot. Rozanov grabbed him and pushed him down on the bed. Shane watched the other man drop his jacket on the floor and it off over his head, a gun crookedly around the Rozanov's neck, crucifix resting on his left clavicle just above the famous, ridiculous tattoo of a snarling grizzly bear. For Russia. I had it before playing for bears. On his chest. Shane would. Right now, all he could do was strip his clothes off and realize that he should be doing the same. They both took off everything, and Rozanov fell on top, kissing him, and moving a hand down to grasp his already embarrassingly rigid cock, up into his touch, making noises. Rozanov lips brushing, moving a hand down to grasp a mix and humiliation. Rozanov slid down his body, kissing his touch, making noises any further. Rozanov took him into his mouth, moving a hand down to grasp a grateful that they were alone in the building. Rozanov slid down his body, kissing his touch, he propped himself up on his elbows so he could watch him into his mouth. Part of him wanted to lie back and close his eyes and let himself believe as long as anyone other than Ilya Rozanov making him kiss so good. But most of him wanted to see exactly who it was. Part of him wanted to lie back and close his eyes and let himself believe around her that were always a mess, fell into his playful hazel eyes. And over his dark and thick eyebrows, his strong jaw and left chin were covered in steady. His smile was hurt and always and his teeth were unnaturally white due to most of his dark and thick eyebrows. His nose on foot having been broken more than a few times, but his smile only seemed more rugged. For a Russian living in Boston, his skin was a lot more gold than his foot. Shane broke the
grasp Rachel Reid was already embarrassed of his was, for whatever reason, making suicide lips broken out of jaws to get grasp Rachel Reid was already embarrassed of his
Their lives were what they are.
making suicide
This was not an easy thing to get. When they started, they hadn't expected their lives, their famous rivals, to get to the point it was. Now, maybe they should have stopped right now. But despite the wrongness of it, this was comfortable. This was familiar, was as close to safe as either of them were going to get. That's all it was. Rozanov worked talented mouse on Shane's cop tossed the lid down the bed from the well-stocked nightstand. Rozanov took it without pausing what he was doing and poured some on to get to work opening. This is his favorite part because he felt vulnerable. He felt weak and ridiculous every time they were together like this, but he always felt it most acutely when Rozanov had his fingers inside him. As a result, the preparation usually took a while. Rozanov, on the other hand, always seemed completely at ease. He was good at this, and he knew. Slid his mouth off of the parting lick to the head that sent a jolt straight through Shane's body and said, "Relax, yeah? It's not much time, but enough." A deep breath and let it out slowly. He hated that voice so much on the ice and in the interviews he saw on television where it him in an obnoxious, teasing tone. But here in this bed, Rozanov's tone was patient and his voice soft, and the accent around boxy English words. Shane relaxed as Rozanov opened him with strong fingers and pressed open-mouthed kisses on the insides of his thighs. When he was ready, Shane wordlessly handed Rozanov a condom before rolling over and getting on his hands and knees. He couldn't look at Rozanov. Not tonight. Not after that humiliating loss. He was good at this. Rozanov seemed to understand. He entered him carefully, not taking him roughly like he had many times in the past. This was slow and considerate. Shane felt big hands on his hips and waist, holding him steady as Rozanov pushed inside. He even felt Rozanov's thumbs brush gently over his lower back. And in the interviews he saw on television where it yes? In an obnoxious, teasing tone. Because it was. It was what he always wanted. Rozanov started to move, and Shane cried out. It never took long for him to just give in and start moaning and gasping and asking for more. They were together open-mouthed kisses, but he always felt it most acutely when Rozanov had his fingers inside. Shane wordlessly handed Rozanov a preparation for rolling over while getting on his hands and knees. Rozanov couldn't look at Rozanov, pressing between his shoulder blades, pressing him down to the mattress. They were both loud, and if he hadn't known the building was empty besides two of them, Shane would have been worried about it, but he felt safe there, so let himself go. Shane cried out with every thrust, and maybe said Rozanov's name a bunch of times. Shane really felt no one could hear brushed gently over when Rozanov reached around to take Shane's cock in his slick hand. Shane became desperate for release and started bucking back against him. This was the point where he was always reminded why he couldn't give this up. It never took long for him to just "You gonna come for me, Hollander?" Hollander was going to. They were together, open-mouthed kisses, but he always found it mattress and swore loudly and coated Rozanov's fist as a Rozanov's preparation for rolling over while getting his hands. Rozanov rocking on the Shane's body between his shoulders just as it was becoming too much for Shane. Rozanov still cried out and coaxed inside of his empty besides not to Shane. Afterwards, they lay on their backs. Shane felt the familiar guilt and shame cried out with every thrust. Well, we wanted something tonight. Rozanov pushed inside and let it out. Rozanov's thumbs brushed Shane lifted his arm to flip him off, but Rozanov's cock grabbed his wrist and pulled him over, so Shane was on top of his chest, looking down at him. Rozanov's playful smirk faded as he held Shane's gaze, and Shane felt suddenly breathless. "That stupid tattoo I see," Shane said quickly, from whatever the fuck was happening. "Oh," Rozanov said. The obnoxious little grin returned to his face. "He missed
Rozanov rocked the other hand.
Shane sneered.
He
did.
was not after
Rozanov insisted.
Good.
Give him a
His
kiss.
slid his mouth
They had
off,
no
hard
desire
to
to
lick
lick
to the
besides
head.
not
It
to
sent a
lick.
jolt
Shane,
straight
after
through
words,
Shane's
they
body.
lay on their
He
backs,
said,
felt safe.
Shane, relax.
Let
There's
himself
not
go.
much time.
Shane
But
cried out
big
with
hands
every
on his
thrust.
hips
And
and
when he
waist. He
wanted
said,
something
hold on
tonight,
steady as Rozanov pushed inside breath and let it out. Rozanov's thumb brushed
Chapter
Shane
4.
when Rozanov
The
reached
director
around
thanked
and
them
the
both,
Rozanov's
and the two hockey players were left to get showered and changed in the same dressing room. Shane undressed quickly and went into the shower, which was, like most rinks, communal style with a row of shower heads facing each other on both sides of a corridor. If he hurried, maybe he could be out of the shower before Rozanov came in. No such luck. Shane had just gotten his hair wet when Rozanov entered the showers and stood under one almost directly across from him. Shane's eyes landed on the large bear tattoo on Rozanov's left calf. It was absolutely hideous. He also noticed the gold crucifix that he guessed the guy never took off. Shane caressed the base of Rozanov's long neck, the cross resting comfortably on his muscular chest. Shane quickly turned his eyes to the floor. He had showered with hundreds of guys in his life, and rooms just like this one. It was just part of the game. He had never looked at any of his fellow players. It was just unthinkable. He glanced up again and saw that Rozanov had turned his back to him. Shane was left to stare helplessly at the display of naked, rippling muscle over Rozanov's broad shoulders and down to his tapered waist and his... Shane blushed hard. He couldn't... Why would he want to check out another guy's ass? That was just weird. But it was a really impressive ass. Not that he was comparing it to others. And as Rozanov scrubbed water over his face, the muscles of his ass flexed, and Shane was transfixed, all around, visibly aroused, in a shower. The only one that was thickened shock with horror before he noticed that Rozanov had turned back around. Rozanov glanced down at Shane's crotch and raised an eyebrow. "Fuck off," Shane grumbled. "It's nothing." "Like what you see, Hollander?" "No, it's not. I was thinking about something else." Shane should have just left the showers then. He was clean enough. This was torture. But Rozanov was grinning at him in a way that was not helping Shane's situation. And Shane didn't seem to have the ability to move. Rozanov was teasing him, but he wasn't punching him in the face, and he wasn't leaving either. Shane wished he could at least make himself look away from Rozanov, but he was spellbound. Rozanov just seemed to be considering him curiously, and maybe enjoying the effect he knew he was having on him. Just another goddamn thing for you to hold over me, Shane thought. He was so busy being mortified that he didn't immediately notice that Rozanov's own dick was starting to swell. The grin had faded from Rozanov's face. His eyes were full of an intensity that was much more heated than what Shane had been facing during their photo shoot. Shane needed to get out of here. This was too bizarre. He absolutely could not do whatever this was. But Rozanov let a hand trail down his stomach and wrapped it around his own dick to give it a slow, firm... Shane gasped, loud enough that the running water couldn't mask it. "What were you thinking about?" Rozanov asked, his voice low. Shane swallowed. His throat was bone dry. He said quietly. Rozanov heard him and smirked. He gave himself another stroke. "You want to touch me, Hollander?" Shane actually just wanted to watch Rozanov jerk himself off, but not here, Shane stammered. Someone could come in. Rozanov nodded and released himself. He turned and shut off the water. Shane waited, heart racing, until Rozanov had left the showers before he turned off his own water. What the hell was happening? Rozanov couldn't possibly be suggesting that he and Shane, that they... Holy shit! Shane had to get out of here. He wondered if he could possibly smash through the tile wall of the shower room and escape that way. Anything would be preferable to facing Rozanov again.
What are you thinking about? Rozanov asked, his voice low. Shane swallowed.
Shane spent the evening freaking the fuck out in his hotel room. He considered his options. He could leave, just go out for a few hours so he wouldn't be there when Rozanov knocked. That would be the sensible thing to do. He could stay and just ignore Rozanov's knock. There could be something satisfying there. Give him a little bit of power over him. He could open the door when he knocked, invite him in, and they could talk about this whole ridiculous, they're separate ways forever. Or he could open the door and he could spend the evening exploring Rozanov's body with his mouth. Shane blushed just thinking about it. He couldn't really want that, could he? He had more or less decided on the second option. He would talk to Rozanov. They would put this behind them as quickly as possible so things wouldn't be weird when the season started. He tidied up the room, even though it was already perfectly tidy. He changed his shirt to a nicer one for no reason at all. He brushed his teeth, flossed, and rinsed with mouthwash, because if he was going to be talking to Rozanov, it would be rude to have bad breath. He fixed his hair a bit. He switched his phone to silent mode. He decided to turn on the television, just so it wouldn't look like he'd just been sitting there staring at the door. He flipped to a baseball game and turned the sound down low. He shut off the overhead light and turned on all of the lamps. He checked himself in the mirror. Again. The knock came at 7 minutes after 9 o'clock. Shane checked the peephole just to make sure Rozanov wasn't pranking him or anything. It was just Rozanov, alone. Shane turned off the television because having it on suddenly seemed dumb. He opened the door and let Rozanov in. Rozanov looked like he may have put a little effort into his appearance, too. He was wearing a black button-up shirt, his gold chain winking at Shane from the wide-open collar. His hair, which was usually a mess of curls, had been tamed a bit, though one lock had already escaped and was tumbling adorably onto Rozanov's forehead. "Thought you might have chickened out," Rozanov said in his infuriatingly blunt manner. "No," Shane said. "I mean, I just want to talk about, you know." "I do know. Yes. Do you want to sit, maybe?" Rozanov took a step toward him. "Not really." He was so close that Shane could feel the heat of his body. Or maybe he was imagining it. "I don't think this is a good idea," Shane said weakly. "What?" Rozanov said, tucking a knuckle under Shane's chin and tilting it up. "This?" He brought his mouth down on Shane's, and Shane fluttered with panic. He was stiff against Rozanov, lips pressed together, eyes open. But Rozanov persisted. Shane felt the tip of Rozanov's tongue trace the outline of his lips, seeking entry. Long fingers threaded into his hair, and Shane surrendered. He parted and closed his eyes, and Rozanov deepened between his lips and pressing his tongue to Shane's. Never kissed a man, and somewhere in the back of his splintering brain, he wondered if Rozanov ever had either. To know what he was doing. Shane felt like he was made of alarm bells, like his panic was going to somehow wake up the entire hotel. If it was just that he was kissing a man, he might be able to get a grip. But kissing this man in particular was so absurd and wrong. But his dick didn't seem to think so, especially not when Rozanov wedged a knee between his legs and rubbed a thigh against Shane's arousal. Shane whimpered, and Rozanov tipped his head back farther, using his height and coming down hard on Shane's open mouth. Shane wasn't sure what to do. He hesitantly slid his palms up Rozanov's chest. He heard Rozanov give a soft moan when Shane's fingers moved over his nipples, and that one little sound made Shane lose any remaining self-control. He kissed Rozanov back, hard and frantic, and wanting more, but not knowing exactly what to ask for. Rozanov crowded him back against a wall and started unbuttoning Shane's shirt. When he got the last button open, he grabbed Shane's hand and pressed it against his crotch. And Shane had his hand on Ilya
Rozanov's dick. Shane could feel the solid length straining against Rozanov's jeans, and he felt his own cock grow harder, even as he struggled against freaking out. He gripped Rozanov through the denim, and one clear idea of what he wanted popped into his head. He wanted the denim barrier to be gone. He wanted to see Rozanov's cock and hold it and feel it pressed against him, which was weird. He shouldn't want that. He shouldn't want any of this. And yet, with a goal in mind, Shane unfastened Rozanov's fly and worked his hand inside. When Shane had his hand wrapped around the thick, smooth length, Rozanov inhaled sharply and stopped kissing him. Both men looked down to watch Shane's hand move under the cotton of Rozanov's briefs. Shane could see the tip of Rozanov's cock poking out of the waistband, and he had the sudden wild urge to kiss it, to press his and to taste it. Fuck, this was really gay. Rozanov didn't seem troubled, though. Instead, he was pulling his own shirt off and reaching to cradle Shane's face with his hand. Shane turned his eyes up, and Rozanov was looking down at Shane with dark eyes, his mouth slack and lips swollen. His face was pure desire. Shane stood frozen as Rozanov dragged his thumb over Shane's lips and then gently pushed it inside. Shane closed his eyes and sucked it into his mouth, letting his tongue wrap around it. He was shocked at how naturally he did this, by how much he loved the sensation. He felt Rozanov shudder, and Shane felt lightheaded. He wasn't sure how long longer he could stay standing. He wondered if Rozanov would let him, if he wanted him to. Shane released Rozanov's thumb and slowly sank to his knees. Fuck, he heard Rozanov breathe. Shane knew there would be no going back from this, but they'd probably already crossed that line anyway. May as well take what he wanted. With shaking hands, he pulled Rozanov's jeans and briefs down and lined up his mouth with his thick, rigid cock. He took a breath and very carefully pressed his tongue to the head. Yes, Hollander, Rozanov hissed. It tasted like skin. Shane slowly moved his tongue around the head, completely unsure what to do. He liked to be excellent at everything. His only experience with this sort of thing had been on the receiving end, so he tried to mimic what some of those girls had done. He took Rozanov deeper into his mouth, and it felt so weird. He just sort of stayed that way for a moment, his tongue flattened by the weight of Rozanov's cock. He knew he must look ridiculous. Rozanov's expression didn't suggest he was watching something ridiculous. He held Shane's face with one big hand down at Shane with hooded eyes. He murmured something in Russian, and then said, Shane's face flushed. An image flashed into his mind of their roles being reversed. What would Rozanov look like on his knees, taking Shane in his mouth? Would Shane ever find out? Shane moaned involuntarily, which made Rozanov shudder. His thumb brushed Shane's cheekbone, and Shane closed his eyes and began to move his mouth. He sucked and licked, letting himself get used to the sensation of having a dick in his mouth. His mind was racing, worrying about technique and about what exactly this all meant. But then Rozanov's fingers were tangled in Shane's hair, and Shane was reminded that this was fucking hot, that he'd fantasized about exactly this, alone in his bedroom, even if he had been embarrassed afterwards. He sighed around Rozanov's cock and bobbed his head a little, losing himself in the slide of rigid flesh against his tongue. He's sure he was doing a terrible job. Fears were confirmed when Rozanov suddenly yelped, "Stop! Stop! Stop!" Shane pulled off quickly and stared at who was grimacing with his eyes squeezed shut. "Sorry, I'm not, I've never..." Rozanov laughed. "He's okay." He waved a hand around, as if he was trying to physically grab the English word he was looking for. "It was too much." "Oh, really?" Shane felt that he had barely done anything. Just, very, overwhelming? Intense? Wrong? Shane could think of a few words, but he didn't want to guess at what Rozanov
Rozanov was feeling. "A lot," Rozanov finished. Then he made a frustrated sound. "No, I cannot think of word." Shane rose off his knees because he felt foolish staying on them if he wasn't going to be doing anything down there. When he was standing, he looked curiously at Rozanov.
Stop. Rozanov made the decision for him. This is a bit not fair. He moved a hand through the air, back and forth between them. "You want me to..." Yes, let me see you. You've already seen me in the shower. I want a better look. Shane removed his clothes quickly. Being naked in the presence of other guys was not foreign to him, but there was nothing familiar about this scenario. He stood in a moment, then tried not to blush as he removed them. Shane stood with his arms out. "Well?" Rozanov grinned and waved a hand over his own chest. "So smooth. Look, like a swimmer. I don't... It's natural, all right?" "Yes. Come here." Rozanov patted the bed next to him. Shane blew out a breath and moved onto the bed. He lay flat on his back next to Rozanov. What to do next? "What?" Rozanov asked. "Don't know." "No?" Rozanov asked, and he leaned over him and kissed him. "Nothing? What about..." Rozanov pressed a palm against Shane's erection and curled gentle fingers around it. "Okay?" Shane nodded. It was shockingly okay for Ilya Rozanov, a guy, a hockey player, his rival, to have his hand wrapped around Shane's dick. "Relax," Rozanov said, and kissed him again. His hand stroked Shane carefully, without lube, and Shane was spellbound. Rozanov's soft, accented words and his gentle hands and his confident kisses were all working together to ensnare him. Dizzy with sensation and lust, Shane lightly pushed on Rozanov's shoulder until he was flat on his back. Then, before he could talk himself out of it, Shane slid down his body and took his cock into his mouth again. He wasn't any surer of his abilities, but he knew what he wanted. He wanted to get Rozanov off. He wanted to take him apart. He let his jaw slacken and took Rozanov as deep as he could. He was nervous about biting him by accident, so he kept his mouth open wider than was probably necessary and used a lot of tongue. It was sloppy and very wet, but he could hear the encouraging sounds Rozanov was making. When Shane turned his eyes up, he could see Rozanov had propped himself up on his elbows and was watching him give his first blowjob with great interest. Wrapped a hand around the base of it and stroked up. When Rozanov arched and moaned, heated it, stroking him hard and fast. Hollander. Fuck. Rozanov switched to Russian, and Shane didn't know what he was saying, but he figured he should probably get out of the way because he wasn't sure he was ready to his mouth. He pulled off just in time. Rozanov put his own hand on his dick to replace Shane's mouth and stroked himself roughly until his release fell all over his own stomach. Shane stared, dumbfounded. It was the hottest thing he had ever seen. Rozanov flopped back on the bed, breathing hard. "Not bad, Hollander," he said. Shane was still staring at the mess on Rozanov's stomach. His own cock was like iron. He thought about stroking himself until he came on Rozanov. He thought about Rozanov putting his mouth on him. "Okay, well, good night," Rozanov said, and moved to get up. Shane's mouth dropped open, and he was about to be furious when he noticed the playful, crooked grin. "Fuck you," Shane said. "Did you need something?" Rozanov asked innocently. Shane glared at him. Rozanov chuckled and grabbed some tissues from the nightstand so he could wipe his stomach off a bit. "Lie down," Rozanov instructed. Shane did. Rozanov crawled on top of him and kissed him. "You think I'm an asshole? You are an asshole. I would not leave you like that." "No?" He kissed him again. "No." As they kissed, Rozanov reached a hand down and gripped Shane's cock. Shane gasped into his mouth. "Let me show you," Rozanov murmured, "how to do this." He kissed his way down Shane's body, which felt so good that Shane forgot to be instead. When he reached Shane's, Rozanov greeted it with a long, slow lick with the entire surface of his tongue, like it was a fucking ice cream cone or something. Jesus, Shane shuddered. Rozanov licked and sucked the head, tonguing the slit and pushing Shane dangerously close to the edge already. He gripped the hotel bed comforter and tried to hold on. Rozanov was shockingly good at this. How many fucking times had he met up with the coach's son? Shane felt like he should be paying attention, maybe taking notes. But his brain had left the room. Shane reached down to run his fingers through the goats of Rozanov's hair. He dragged his fingers down over the stubble on his cheek, the sharp line of his jaw. Shane had enjoyed watching some truly hot girls sucking him off in the past, but this was beyond anything he had ever experienced before. Watching this big, beautiful man who knew exactly what to do with his tongue and lips, and Shane had enjoyed watching fucking ice cream cone or something. Jesus. God, his teeth work him like there would be a medal awarded for performance. Rozanov, to get the hell out of instead, he sucked him harder and shoved himself into his mouth. The sense fell out of Shane's mouth. Shit. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. Fuck. Wow. God. Rozanov pulled off, not at all hurried, and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. He laughed at Shane's babbling. Sorry? Why sorry? Shane choked out a hysterical laugh. I don't know. I wasn't expecting you to. Rozanov shrugged as if he was thanking him for bringing in the mail. I don't mind it. Shane felt stupid that he hadn't even tried to properly finish the job on Rozanov. This guy was determined to one-up him at every turn. Rozanov sat on the edge of the bed with his back to Shane. He rolled his neck and idly rubbed his jaw. Shane sat up and swung his legs over the opposite side of the bed. He gripped the mattress with both hands and looked at the floor. He felt panic surge up in him again. He heard Rozanov blow out a breath, which made Shane laugh for some reason. The absurdity of the situation was hitting him. You're laughing? Yeah, well, this whole thing is a little nuts. I want a cigarette. You're not allowed to smoke in the hotel. I know, stupid country. Rozanov sighed. Doesn't matter. Bears told me to quit. I am trying to not smoke. Oh, that's good. Smoking is bad for you. Is it? Shane could hear Rozanov's eyes rolling. So, Shane said, still keeping his back to Rozanov. This won't leave this room, okay? You think I will tell people? Shane sincerely doubted it. No. He felt the bed shift as Rozanov stood up. Stupid urge. He imagined farms. And what the fuck? This thing they just did was, above all things, a huge mistake. As far as hookups went, Shane really could not have chosen a less appropriate person. And even forgetting that, there was no reason to pretend this was anything more than a quick, no-strings fuck. And why would Shane even want to pretend that? He didn't. He wanted Rozanov out of his hotel room. He wanted to forget that this ever happened. He did not want to reach for him, to pull him back on the bed, to do everything they just did 2 or 3 more times. When Rozanov was fully dressed, he gave Shane one of his playful, crooked smiles. Shane had managed to put his underwear back on, but other than that, was still naked. My flight is early tomorrow. There was maybe a note of apology in it, or maybe I was imagining things. All right. Rozanov nodded. I'll see you around. Yeah, I'll see you on the ice, I guess. Yes. Shane wanted to kiss him one more time because he was sure he would never get the chance again. But Rozanov was already opening the door. Goodbye, Hollander. Bye, Shane said to the closed door.
Why would Shane even want to pretend that? He didn't. He wanted Rozanov out of his hotel
Chapter
room.
6.
He wanted to
Ilya
forget
wasn't
that this
surprised
ever
at all
happened.
when the knock came.
He did not want
It was
to
late,
reach for him.
after
To
midnight.
pull him back
He
on
had been
bed,
back in his room
to do
for almost
everything
2
they
hours.
just did 2 or 3
Hollander
more
pushed
times.
into the room as soon
When
as Ilya
Rozanov was
opened the
fully
door.
dressed, he
He
gave
turned
Shane one
and
of his
flipped the bar
playful,
latch
crooked
as if
smiles.
someone was going to burst
Shane
in at any
managed
moment.
to put his underwear
He looked
back on,
terrified.
but other than that, was
Is there a
still
ghost
naked.
out there?
My
Ilya
flight
asked,
is early
amused.
tomorrow.
No,
There was
fuck
maybe a
you.
note of
This is
apology,
fucking
or
dangerous
maybe
and
I
you
was
know it.
imagining things.
Is it? We're
All
not
right.
doing anything.
Rozanov nodded.
Hollander looked at him hard.
See you around.
His dark eyes were a mixture of
I'll
anger
see
and
you on the
lust.
ice, I guess.
Ilya decided to
Yes.
drop the act.
Shane
You
wanted
came
to kiss
anyway,
him one more
he
time,
said.
because he
Yeah,
was sure he would
Hollander
never get a
said,
chance
his voice
again.
tight and full of
But
forced
Rozanov
courage.
was already
I guess I
opening the
did.
door.
Ilya
Goodbye,
nodded,
Hollander.
and then Hollander swore under his breath
Shane said,
and lunged
with a
forward
closed door.
to kiss him. A t-shirt and a tight fist and pulled him closer. Ilya moaned at the hot slide of Hollander's tongue against his. He tugged roughly on the hair at the back of Hollander's head, tipping his head back so he could deepen the kiss. They broke apart, and Hollander looked at him, eyes wild, dark hair a mess, silently begging for instruction. On your knees, Ilya said softly, just to see what he expecting Hollander to. Ilya's breath caught in his throat as he watched him sink fluidly to the floor. He gazed up at Ilya. Those onyx eyes, always so sharp, were hazy with desire. Hollander leaned forward to nuzzle and mouth at the bulge in Ilya's sweatpants. Christ, Hollander, Ilya breathed, gently pulling at Hollander's hair as he pressed hot, open-mouthed kisses to the fabric that pulled tight over Ilya's erection. He felt dizzy and less in control than he wanted to be, as Hollander tucked fingers into Ilya's waistband and pulled down until Ilya's cock was freed. Hollander didn't hesitate. He dragged his tongue up the length before wrapping his lips around the head and sinking down. Ilya couldn't make a smart remark. He just gasped and let his head fall back, completely overwhelmed by Hollander's need for this. He certainly didn't have the ability to conjure English words right now. Hollander reached a hand and slid it under the ham shirt. He pushed the shirt up until Ilya took the hint and pulled it off over his head. He carefully stepped out of his sweatpants, Hollander's mouth never leaving him, and planted a hand on the back of Hollander's head. He was careful not to hold him too firmly in place. This wasn't control. Ilya just wanted to touch him, to let the silky strands of his hair slip through his fingers as Hollander gave in to what he had clearly been craving. Hollander's hands wandered as he sucked him. His touch was light, his fingertips almost tickling Ilya as he explored his thighs and hips and around to his ass. Ilya wondered how far Hollander was willing to go with him. He wondered if he'd done anything with another man since their last time. The desperate, unskilled motion of his mouth and the slight tremble in his hands suggested that he hadn't. The idea that Ilya was probably the only one who ever saw him like this, that he was the only person in the entire fucking world who knew what it felt like to have those pretty pink lips wrapped around his cock. Ilya swore in Russian and pulled away, grabbed Hollander by the front of his shirt and hauled him up, kissing him roughly before throwing him on the bed. He wanted to know how much he would give him tonight. Hollander stared up at him, lips dark-hearted. His hair was everywhere. Ilya just stood him, toe off his sneakers, never breaking eye contact. Hollander was breathing heavily, as if he wasn't one of the most physically fit people on the planet. Ilya bit his lip and watched him pull his shirt off. In seconds, Ilya was covering him on the bed with his body and kissing him hungrily. Ilya had always been this way. He loved sex, and he loved it more when it was dangerous, when it was with someone he knew he shouldn't be with. Whether that was his coach's son, or his brother's girlfriend, or his teammate's sister, Ilya couldn't resist a bad idea. And Shane Hollander was a bad fucking idea. The worst idea. Wrong in every way imaginable. Two men, two NHL players poised to be the two biggest stars in the league soon enough. Two bitter rivals on opposing teams that hated each other for almost 100 years. Plus, Ilya hated this guy. He hated his pretty boy face and his perfect
perfect goddamned English, and his perfect goddamned French, and his loving parents, and his polite little manners, and his $1,000,000 smile. He hated how serious he was, how earnest. He was everything the league wanted from their stars. He kissed his dumb mouth and swallowed his stupid little sighs and felt his annoying fingers in his hair. He pulled back so he could look at his horrible face with its ridiculous freckles. Fuck. Ilya kissed him again so he didn't have to think about him. He wanted to fuck him. God, would Hollander let him fuck him? They kissed each other frantically, rolling and taking turns straddling each other and pulling off what was left of Hollander's clothes in the process. Ilya kissed his way down his body and took him into his mouth. Hollander's hips jerked off the bed, nearly forcing Ilya off him, but Ilya held on. He sucked him and enjoyed the desperate noises he pulled out of him. He let his fingers trail down below Hollander's balls. He tapped one finger against his puckered opening and waited for a reaction. Hollander's body stilled on the bed, so Ilya drew light circles around his hole, just a casual suggestion. He could feel Hollander tense up. He was completely silent now. Ilya pulled his mouth off him and looked up at his face. "Have you ever?" Ilya asked. Hollander shook his head. "Would you like to?" "I don't know." "You are scared." No, I'm not scared. It's okay to be." Hollander exhaled loudly. "I'm not scared," I said. "Have you ever touched yourself?" Ilya asked, circling his finger again. "Here?" Hollander's face flushed bright red, and Ilya grinned. "Jesus Christ," Hollander muttered. "You are embarrassed. Well, you don't play with your ass? It makes you gay? Oh my fucking God. You know what makes you gayer? Rozanov, shut the fuck. Sucking my dick. You were doing that a minute ago." Hollander sat up. "I've played with it, all right. I've got a thing." "A thing?" "A dildo, okay?" Rozanov grinned so hard it hurt. "What color?" "Fuck you." "Is it big?" "I'm leaving." Hollander moved to get off the bed. Ilya quickly covered him and pinned him back down. He held him down by the wrists, and Hollander made a half-hearted attempt to fight him off, but stopped when Ilya kissed him. "I want to fuck you, Hollander," Ilya said against his ear. Hollander shuddered, and Ilya was sure he was going to say yes, but instead, No, I can't. Not here." Ilya considered his answer and nodded. "Not here. Not in a hotel surrounded by their fellow NHL players, by the media, by fans. Not now when they would both have to be as close to silent as possible when Ilya entered him for the first time." "Okay," Ilya said, nipping at his throat. "Next time, then." Hollander snorted, but he was smiling hopefully. "Next time?" Ilya shrugged one shoulder. "We play in Montreal in 2 weeks. That doesn't mean we can... how would we... Where would we? Are you homeless? No? Well then? So what, you're just going to sneak out of your hotel? What will you tell your teammates?" "The fucking truth. I'm going to get laid, like every city we play in." Hollander's brow furrowed. "Oh, yeah, after the game you just want me to wait at home for you?" Hollander's voice was tight, like he was angry about it. I rolled his eye. No idea why we were wasting time talking right now. "Yes, wait for me. I will come to your house and fuck you." Hollander looked embarrassed again. "It's an apartment," he mumbled. "Jesus, fine, I will fuck you in your apartment. Can we get back to things now?" "Yes," Hollander frowned. But? "In the shower. The water will drown out anything." Rozanov huffed, but it was actually a good idea. "Yes," he said, springing off the bed and onto his feet. "But hurry the fuck up." Hollander shoved him as he walked by, leading the way to the bathroom. He turned the water on, and as they waited for it to get hot, Ilya kissed him against the closed door until Hollander shoved him away so he could pull Ilya into the shower. He slammed him against the tile and wrapped a hand around his cock as he kissed him. Ilya grinned against his mouth. This was the Shane Hollander he wanted, competitive, aggressive. "Your hands are so soft, like a girl's. Fuck you." Ilya laughed. Hollander jerked him harder, as if trying to prove how strong and masculine his hands were. Ilya bit his lip and gave up teasing his rival. For now, he reached for Hollander, and they brought each other off frantically and roughly in the shower, letting the rush of water muffle their English and Russian profanity. Hollander got dressed quickly when they were done. Ilya stood with a towel wrapped around his waist, waiting to hear what Hollander would say. Ilya didn't say anything back. He waited.
Shoved him as he walked by, leading the way to the bathroom. She
Chapter
turned the
7.
water on, and as they
Shane
waited for
sat
it to
on the
get
end
hot,
of his
Ilya
king-size
kissed him
hotel
against the
bed.
closed door
Then he stood
until
up.
Hollander
Then
shoved
he
him
sat
away
back down
so he
again.
could pull Ilya into the
So
shower.
fucking dumb.
He slammed him
Why was he
against the
doing
tiles
this?
and wrapped
Book in a
hand
room in
around
the
his
same
crotch
hotel
he
as the
kissed him.
entire
Ilya
Boston
grinned
team,
against his
several
mouth.
floors above
This
theirs,
was the
but
Shane
still,
Hollander
so
he
he could
wanted
hook
to
up
be
with a man he didn't even like.
aggressive.
If
And
they
her hands are so soft.
devastating
White
to both of
girl.
their careers.
Fuck
At the
you.
very least, it would be
Ilya laughed.
very embarrassing.
Hollander jerked him harder,
Shane
as
stood
if
and
trying
went to
to
the mirror.
prove how
He
strong
checked
and
his teeth
masculine his
and
hands
nudged
were.
a stray lock of
Ilya
hair
bit his
back
lip
into place.
and gave up
There was a
teasing
sharp
his
rap
rival.
on his door.
For now,
He spun around,
reached for
startled by
Hollander,
how
and they
loud
brought
it
each
sounded,
other off
and quickly
frantically
crossed the
and
room to
roughly
open
in the
it.
shower,
Jesus,
letting the rush of
trying to
water
get everyone's
muffle their
attention?
English and Russian
Rozanov
profanity.
slid into the room.
Hollander got dressed
Ball cap
quickly
was
when they were
pulled
done.
low over his
Ilya
eyes.
stood with a
Shane
towel
closed
wrapped
and
around
latched
his
the door
waist,
quickly
waiting
behind
to hear
him.
what Hollander
You are
would say.
nervous, Rozanov said. It wasn't
Ilya
a
didn't
question.
say anything back.
No,
He
Shane
waited.
lied. It's just sex, Hollander. I know. Rozanov pulled the ball cap off and brown curls tumbled out, falling messily around his grinning face. He was wearing a charcoal gray t-shirt with a small Nike logo on the chest and black track pants. Shane was wearing dark blue pants and a striped cashmere sweater and felt ridiculous. You look nice, Rozanov said. His tone was flat, like he was just stating a fact rather than offering a compliment. You look nice. It's cold. Shane stood and went to the mirror outside. This hotel, thanks, Shane said, because he had to say something. We're dressed. Yes, we both are, Rozanov said, and he pulled his t-shirt off over his head before bending to remove his high-top sneakers. Shane's eyes fixed on the way Rozanov's gold cross dangled in the space between his knees and his chest. The thin chain glinted against the back of his neck. When Rozanov, Shane couldn't remember why exactly this was a bad idea. Come here, Rozanov said. No, you come here. Rozanov grinned and shook his head and stepped toward Shane. Shane must have taken a step forward himself because they kind of crashed into each other. A second later, he was against Rozanov was attacking his mouth. Shane shoved back against him and was reminded that Montreal had won the game that night. Rozanov had to be at least a little pissed off about that, and Shane felt he might be taking it out on him. Shane had no problem with that. He sank his fingers into Rozanov's biceps and hauled him closer. He wrapped his foot around Rozanov's ankle, and Rozanov growled and, without warning, grabbed Shane's thighs and hoisted him up the wall so that Shane had no choice but to wrap his legs around the taller man's waist, which Shane should have been angry about, but instead he gasped and kissed Rozanov even more wildly. Could fuck you just like this, Rozanov against the fucking wall. You would like that, yes? Would Shane like that? Probably. Not tonight, Rozanov continued, moving his mouth close to Shane's ear. Tonight I will go easy on you. Shane wanted to tell him to fuck off, but Rozanov was kissing his throat, scraping his teeth over the sensitive skin. So instead, he threw his head back against the wall like the eager slut he appeared. He felt Rozanov chuckle against his throat, and then Shane felt himself being pulled away from the wall and carried to the bed like a fucking child. Put me down, asshole. Shh, I can walk. Rozanov's big hands gripped his ass as they crossed the room. Shane pushed back off Rozanov's shoulders, and he could see in those playful eyes. Rozanov turned and dropped Shane on the bed. Shane glared up at him. He was about to tell him off, but he got distracted by the tall, bare-chested, muscular form looming over him. Shane suddenly felt very small on the bed, which was ridiculous. He was 5 feet 10 inches and built of solid muscle himself. But Rozanov was gazing down on Shane, who was still fully clothed, like he was trying to decide where to take his first bite.
and Shane felt vulnerable, and he was kind of into it. Rozanov slid his track pants down and off, and stood at the end of the bed wearing only his black boxer briefs, his gold chain, and his stupid fucking bear tattoo. Shane's eyes went right to the briefs and the hard length that was trapped beneath. He also noted the way Rozanov's enormous thighs burst out of the legs of the shorts, hard muscles jutting out from the straining fabric. Rozanov leaned down and planted a knee firmly on the bed between Shane's sprawled legs, dangerously close to his crotch. Shane looked up wide-eyed as Rozanov descended on him and captured his mouth again. Two big hands landed on Shane's chest, stroking him over his sweater. "This is soft," Rozanov murmured. "It's cashmere," Shane said. "Yes, take it off." He did. Rozanov pulled up, keeping his knee firmly between Shane's thighs as he watched Shane strip down to his own briefs. He lay there waiting for Rozanov to cover him again, to press his weight down on him. But instead, Rozanov lightly dragged his fingertips up one of Shane's legs, tickling his skin and making every hair stand up. He drew a path up to where his skin disappeared into the leg of his briefs and then paused. Shane felt like there was an electric current running through him. He could see his own cock twitching in his shorts, begging for attention. He bit his lip and waited. Rozanov dipped his head and kissed Shane's stomach. He did it over and over again, his lips almost as gentle and teasing as his fingertips had been. Shane inhaled sharply. How was Rozanov so good at this? Rozanov's mouth found one of Shane's nipples and bit it gently before licking it. Shane squirmed, and Rozanov wrapped a hand most of the way around Shane's thigh to hold him down. Shane once again marveled at how big his hands were. When Rozanov returned his mouth to Shane, he finally moved his hand to palm Shane's erection through his briefs. Shane made an embarrassing noise into Rozanov's mouth. "Did you bring everything?" "Yes," Shane said. He was pretty sure he had everything. "Lube and condoms, right?" "Good boy." "Fuck you." "Yes." His hand slid inside Shane's shorts and pulled his erection out. Shane slipped a hand in between their bodies so he could rub his hand over Rozanov's frontal shorts. Rozanov kissed him hard and ground his crotch against Shane's, holding himself up with one hand planted next to Shane's head. Shane moaned at the feel of Rozanov's hips and pelvis rolling against him. "He's going to fuck me." His whole body tensed up. Rozanov noticed. "Relax," he breathed against Shane's ear. "You will like this." "Yeah," Shane said, his voice strained. Rozanov pushed off him for a moment so he could quickly rid himself of his briefs. Shane did the same. When he returned his eyes to Rozanov, he was struck by how big his cock was. He'd seen it before, of course, and he knew it was a decent size. But looking at it now, with the idea that it was supposed to somehow fit inside him, he must have been wearing his anxiety all over his face. Rozanov laughed. "It will fit." Shane blushed furiously, which made Rozanov laugh more. "Trust me. Where is the stuff?" Shane, grateful for something to do other than stare at Rozanov's cock in horror, reached over and opened the nightstand drawer. "I've got, lube. I ordered it online. It's supposed to be the best for this." "Ass fucking?" Rozanov asked. "You sweet-talk all your sex partners like this?" "I'm very charming." He took the bottle from Shane and inspected it. "I have condoms, too," Shane said. He pulled a strip of them out of the drawer. Rozanov raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure that will be enough?" "All right, look." Rozanov grinned that sexy goddamn lopsided grin, and Shane laughed too. He watched as Rozanov poured a good amount of lube on his fingers, then wrapped those fingers around Shane's cock. "Oof," Shane huffed. "Oh, a bit." "Shh, relax." Shane had something smart to say back to him, but it dissolved on his tongue as Rozanov rubbed his thumb over Shane's slit. They both watched as Rozanov teased the slit until he drew a bead of liquid out. He smeared it over the head of Shane's cock, and Shane's fingers grabbed at the bedding. With his other hand, Rozanov gently rolled and tugged at Shane's balls. He was so confident, but so careful. The combination was making Shane thrive with need. "Please," Shane whispered. "Please what?" Rozanov asked with a raised eyebrow. "I don't know." "Please touch you here?" Rozanov asked, his fingers trailing below Shane's balls and over the smooth skin that led to... "Yes," Shane said. He closed his eyes and let his head fall back on the pillow. Do you know how this works, Hollander? Not really. Yeah, sure. He opened one eye. You've done this before? Yes. With the coach's son? Rozanov shrugged. Sure, he was one. Oh, girls too, Hollander. You have not done this with a girl? Shane had never really wanted to do anything with a girl that was complicated or that would make things take longer. No, he said. Rozanov stilled both of his hands. You have had sex before, yes? Yes, God. Okay. Rozanov went back to stroking Shane's cock and dancing his fingers closer to Shane's opening. Shane, you really think I haven't had sex? Shane was outraged. Rozanov shrugged. I've had plenty of sex, Rozanov. Lots. Fine.
Shane didn't like how amused Rozanov looked, but he did like it. He poured more lube over his fingers and began to stroke them over Shane's hole. He sucked in a breath, and his whole body shuddered. Just relax, Mr. Lots of Sex, Rozanov said. I will make sure you are ready for me. Shane wanted to scowl at him, but in truth, he was sort of charmed by the level of care Rozanov was showing. But Shane was still at least 35% terrified. Rozanov kept gently brushing his fingers over Shane's hole, while at the same time lazily stroking Shane's cock. Together, it all felt wonderful. Shane felt his body release a lot of the tension he had been holding, and he floated a bit on the good feelings that were coursing through him. It was so good, he could almost forget to be embarrassed about where Rozanov was touching him. Good? Rozanov asked. Shane sighed. And then he felt the tip of Rozanov's finger enter him, and he clenched in response. Sorry, Shane winced, then took a breath. He did know how this worked. He had done a little experimenting on himself with the aforementioned dildo. But those times had been him alone, in private. This is okay, Rozanov said in a low, soothing rumble. We will go slow, yes? Thank you, Shane mumbled. The other thing about the private dildo sessions was that Shane had been kind of bad at it. At least he had been pretty sure he had been doing something wrong. It hadn't felt bad necessarily, but it hadn't been mind-blowing either. Rozanov dipped his head and took Shane's cock into his mouth. Shane felt himself relax, each stroke of Rozanov's tongue making him forget to be nervous. He took slow, even breaths as Rozanov worked his finger in a little deeper, and then, oh! Shane arched and gasped. Holy shit! Rozanov pulled his mouth off him and smirked. Good, yes? He rubbed his fingertip again over what had to be Shane's prostate. Shane had kind of nudged it himself before, when he had been alone, but Rozanov seemed to know exactly where it was and what to do with it. Shane squeezed his eyes shut and bit his lip. If he didn't, he was going to do something embarrassing, like whimper. The combination of Rozanov's mouth on his cock and his finger inside of him was like nothing he had ever felt before, and there was no way he was going to last long enough for Rozanov to fuck him if this continued. You gotta... fuck. Just wait a minute, Shane rasped out. Rozanov stopped immediately. Okay? He asked. Yeah, very okay. Too okay. Ah, Rozanov used the break time as an opportunity to give his own erection a few lazy strokes. Shane watched him and noticed again how absurdly large Rozanov's dick looked. Do not have to, Rozanov said, noticing Shane's face. I want to, Shane said, quickly, too quickly. Rozanov nodded and reached for the lube and the condoms. He got himself ready, and then returned his attention. Shane's fingers pressed against his open, slipped inside. There was less burning this time. Stroke yourself, Rozanov instructed. Shane nodded and obeyed. Rozanov let out a low noise that sounded like a growl. Turn over, he said. Shane got on his hands and knees, because that's how this worked, right? He was pretty sure. He had watched about 40 seconds of gay porn once before he'd gotten embarrassed and closed his laptop. Now he wished he had endured a little longer, if only for research purposes.
He felt Rozanov's hands grab his thighs, and he was hauled back until his knees were at the end of the bed. Rozanov put one foot on the mattress next to Shane's knee and placed a hand firmly on Shane's hip. And then Shane could feel it, the much too large, blunt head of Rozanov's cock bumping against his hole. He clenched his eyes shut and braced himself for pain. When Rozanov pressed in, it was slow and careful, but Shane's whole body trembled anyway. The pain was there, but not as sharp as Shane had been expecting. The pressure was the most overwhelming sensation, impossibly full, and couldn't imagine how Rozanov was supposed to move once he was all the way in. Shane was struck with the sudden, horrific thought that Rozanov would become stuck inside him. Oh, Jesus, they would have to call 911 or something. Shane forced himself to take a breath and pushed images of doctors trying to separate them while all of Rozanov's teammates were watching out of his mind. Okay, Rozanov asked again. He ran a hand over Shane's back, slow and soothing. Yeah, Shane said. His voice sounded strained. Rozanov pulled out a little, then pushed back in, even deeper this time. Fuck. Wow. Encouraged, Rozanov repeated the motion, and again. Then Rozanov adjusted his hips a little, and on the next thrust, hit Shane's prostate, sending a jolt of pleasure through him. God, yes, fuck, keep doing that. I will, don't fucking worry. Shane wasn't feeling any pain now, and he wasn't scared. He started to push back against Rozanov when he thrust into him, which Rozanov seemed to take as an invitation to go harder. His thrusts became faster, causing the bed to shake and Shane's arms to tremble as he struggled to hold himself up. It was more than Shane had thought he'd be able to take, but he wanted it. He loved it. Rozanov's fingers were digging hard into Shane's hips, enough to leave marks. He was hauling Shane back against him as he pounded into him. Shane lifted a hand up to his own mouth so he could bite his knuckles to keep from screaming. This, he realized, why people about sex. He had never, ever felt like this with anyone before. And of course, Ilya Rozanov, all 19 years old, fucked with the confidence and skill of like a sex god. Shane chanced taking his hand out of his mouth so he could wrap it around his dick. He wished he had put a towel down or something. He was going to come all over this hotel bedding. He knew he was going to feel bad about it, but not enough to do anything about it now. Yeah, come on, Hollander, Rozanov growled. Rozanov, who did not care about the poor hotel maids. Fuck, Shane gritted out, and he cummed so hard that most of it shot up and hit him in the chest. He was so dazed by his own orgasm that he almost didn't register when Rozanov tensed and stilled behind him. Rozanov grunted and came inside of Shane's body, into a condom, but still. Shane's body had made that happen, and he couldn't quite wrap his brain around that fact. Then, to Shane's dismay, Rozanov collapsed on top of him, crushing Shane and the mess all over his chest into the mostly clean bedding. The bed's all dirty, Shane complained before he could stop himself. What? Rozanov said sleepily. Shut up. Shane closed his eyes and enjoyed the weight of Rozanov on top of him. Eventually, Rozanov rode off and went to the bathroom to clean up. Shane shifted carefully to his back, already feeling the pain that was going to make it hard to sit down tomorrow. With Rozanov safely out of the room, Shane grinned stupidly at the ceiling. He was maybe happier than he should be that his most successful sexual experience to date was with Ilya Rozanov. The smile faded as he wondered how in hell he was ever going to experience this again, because he couldn't keep letting Rozanov fuck him, obviously, and he wasn't sure how to safely find other men to do it. Hit the showers, Hollander, Rozanov said as he left the bathroom. I will get dressed and leave.
Then, to Shane's dismay,
of course, what the fuck was Shane expecting? He stood up. Yeah, okay, well, Rozanov put one hand on Shane's shoulder in a fairly condescending way, his lips an irritating little smile. Was fun.
he said.
Yeah, thanks, I guess. Rozanov nodded, and then turned to pick up his scattered clothing. Shane went to the bathroom, closing the door behind him. When Shane left the bathroom, freshly showered and wearing a towel, Rozanov was gone. There was no trace of the man, other than the messed up bed sheets. Shane grimaced at them, then dropped the top sheet on the floor.
Chapter 9. Ilya pushed Hollander's chest and knocked him flat onto his back on the bed. Ilya took a moment to gaze down at him, at his flushed cheeks and mussed hair, and at the strip of exposed skin where his t-shirt had been. Then Ilya pounced. They kissed in their usual combative style for a while, Hollander rolling them to pin Ilya down and attack his mouth before Ilya would flip them and regain control. Shirts came off, then pants, then socks and underwear. An hour, Ilya murmured. He was on top now, biting and licking his way along Hollander's collarbone. Then I have to go. Then hurry the fuck up. Ilya smiled against Hollander's skin. He was such a little brat. Ilya raised himself up and straddled Shane's waist, making sure to squeeze just a little too hard with his thighs. He took his own dick in his hand and stroked it slowly, thoughtfully. You want this, Hollander? And oh God, Ilya could see the war going on in Hollander's head. He could see how much he wanted to tell Ilya to fuck off and die. But more than that, he could see the way Hollander's tongue poked out to moisten his lower lip. Starving for it, yes, Hollander? Ilya slid forward, positioning his body closer to Hollander's face, to his mouth. Hollander's chest was heaving beneath him, and he glared up at Ilya with dark, intense eyes. He's okay, Ilya said soothingly. He tapped the head of his cock against Hollander's lips. You can. Take it. I hate you. Yes, I know. Show me. Fuck, Hollander whispered, seemingly to himself. Then he parted his lips and licked the moisture off Ilya's slit. Ilya's hand shot out and gripped the headboard. It seemed like a nice headboard, sturdy. He expected he'd find out exactly how sturdy soon enough. Hollander teased the head of Ilya's dick for a maddeningly long time, but damn, what a show. Ilya watched Hollander's eyes flutter closed as he sucked the head into his mouth. His tongue rolled around it, flicking the underside and then dipping into the slit. It was so fucking good, and not nearly enough. Hollander growled, seemingly as frustrated with the angle as Ilya was, and pushed him down to the mattress before taking Ilya's cock into his mouth again. This time, Hollander made a meal of Ilya's dick, his head bobbing in a quick rhythm that Ilya was not going to be able to endure for very long, not if he also wanted to fuck Hollander in their allotted hour of time. But Hollander wasn't letting up. He tugged at Ilya's balls with just the right amount of pressure, and Ilya could feel Hollander's erection sliding along his thigh. Hollander, he warned. He was flying way too high, too fast. Hollander moaned. Or maybe he'd tried to form a word around Ilya's dick, but all it did was cause vibrations that Ilya really didn't need right now. Fuck. Fuck. You have to stop. If you want me to fuck you. Hollander ripped his mouth away from Ilya's cock, but then he went very still. Shit. Oh God. Fuck. Ilya felt wetness splash against his thigh. Hollander's body jerked a couple of times, and then he buried his face in Ilya's shoulder. Fuck. Hollander? I'm sorry, he groaned. I can't believe you didn't even touch me. And Ilya just laughed, because it was fucking funny. Don't fucking laugh at me. Been a while? Ilya teased. Hollander kept his forehead planted on Ilya's shoulder, hiding his face completely. Shut up. But Ilya laughed harder. He laughed until Hollander joined in, and then they were both holding each other and laughing until they were wiping tears from their eyes. You could win the fastest shot competition. Hollander punched him lightly in the chest. Ilya rolled to his side, dumping Hollander on the mattress beside him. It's too bad. I wanted to fuck you. Do you still want? I don't think I can. I think I'm too fucking embarrassed to get it up again. Is that a challenge? No. But can I finish what I was doing?
Ilya flopped onto his back again and folded his arms behind his head. Go for it. And Hollander did. But this time he was far less frantic and took his time. Ilya enjoyed every second of it. Ilya would be lying if he said Hollander had the most talented mouth that had ever been wrapped around his dick. But he was so eager to please, so determined to be good at this. For Ilya, there was something very sweet about the way Hollander was sucking him off right now. Like he wasn't trying to just get it over with, even though Hollander had already had his own orgasm. He seemed to legitimately enjoy making Ilya feel good. Ilya always felt good with Hollander. I don't want to say it was better than it was with anyone else, but it was different. And not only because Hollander was a man. Ilya hadn't been with a man who wasn't Hollander in over a year, almost 2 maybe. But that wasn't it. Hollander glanced up at him, and Ilya smiled and stroked his hair. The clock was ticking, and Ilya really did need to leave, so he gently held Hollander's head and guided him so he'd hit the rhythm Ilya needed. And there, yes. Oh, fuck. That's good, Hollander. Just like that. Make me come. Hollander moaned and dug his fingers into Ilya's thighs, keeping the pace with his mouth that Ilya had set. The familiar, exhilarating pressure of impending release gripped Ilya's body, the high that he couldn't stop chasing, and he squeezed his eyes shut. I'm going to come. Oh, fuck, Hollander. Hollander pulled off, replacing his mouth with his hand. I want to see it. Seconds later, Ilya erupted. He cried out, much louder than usual, as a white-hot orgasm rocketed through his body. Holy shit, Hollander, Ilya gasped when he was able to speak again. I'm dead. You killed me. Hollander was sitting up now and staring at the mess on Ilya's stomach. That was really hot. Yes. I'm glad we were in an empty building where no one could hear you. And then Ilya felt the rare and unwelcome sensation of his cheeks heating in embarrassment. He didn't usually yell like that when he was coming. He didn't want to think about it. So he said, I have to go. All right. 15 minutes later, they were waiting at the bottom of the stairs for Ilya's taxi to arrive. His nice building, Ilya said, because he hated the silence. You don't want to live here? No. But renovations might take a while, so I'll probably be able to use it for this, for a bit. More silence. And then Hollander said, you must be excited for the Olympics in Russia. Yes. Ilya was excited, but thinking about the expectations of his home country, of his father, made his stomach hurt and made him want a cigarette. Been dreaming of the Olympics my whole life, Hollander said. I can't wait. For what? A bronze medal? Fuck, you laughed. Hey, remember when you shot your load for like no reason at all? Hollander rolled his eyes, but I could tell he was trying not to laugh. Oh my God, go to hell. Amazing trick. Your cab must be out there, right? Ilya put his hand on the door, but before he pushed it open, he leaned down and kissed Hollander quickly on the mouth. Good night, Hollander. Good night. Ilya was grinning like an idiot for the entire cab ride back to his hotel. His nice building, Ilya said, because he hated the silence. You don't want to live here? No. But renovations might
Chapter 11. Rozanov had won. Of course he had won. And now Shane had to find out what exactly he wanted from him. They had done everything? Shane was pretty sure they'd done everything at this point. Blowjobs, check. Hand jobs, of course. Fucking, yes, but only with Shane bottoming. Shane couldn't see Rozanov wanting to change that up. He hoped not, anyway. Shane sent Rozanov a text as he approached the door, and he heard it click open just before he arrived. He entered quickly. Rozanov had an enormous suite booked at the Las Vegas casino where the award ceremony was held. He stood in the middle of it now, most of his tuxedo already removed. He was down to just the sleek black pants, with his dress shirt half unbuttoned. His feet were bare. Shane had removed his bow tie and stuffed it in his pocket when he had unfastened a couple of his own shirt buttons earlier, but he had some catching up to do. Here to congratulate me? Rozanov said. I guess. Rozanov spread his arms out, as if to say, well?
"Congratulations," Shane said flatly. "Thank you. Now take off your clothes." Shane had been kind of hoping Rozanov would help him with that, but he obeyed, draping each discarded piece of his suit carefully over the back of the sofa. Rozanov didn't remove any of his own clothing. He just leaned against a glass table and crossed his arms, watching Shane. "Shouldn't we... I mean, there are windows." There were a lot of windows. "We are on the 16th floor." "Yeah, but..." Rozanov pushed himself off the table and flicked his hand in the air, gesturing for Shane to follow him to the bedroom. Shane was down to his briefs. When he reached the bedroom, Rozanov was already drawing the curtains across the windows. "On the bed," he instructed, without looking at Shane. Shane did his best to appear comfortable and relaxed on the giant bed, as if he wasn't nervous as hell about whatever Rozanov had planned. He expected Rozanov to join him on the bed, but instead, Rozanov left the room. He was gone for an obnoxiously long time. When he returned, he was holding a glass of clear liquid. He sat himself in a chair against the wall at the end of the bed and took a sip. "I am impressed with this hotel. This vodka is not so..." "Okay," Shane said impatiently. "Touch yourself." "What?" "Show off for me. Let me watch you." "You what?" "Is my special night, Hollander. I want to watch you." Every inch of Shane flushed red. I've never..." Rozanov grinned. "I thought maybe not. So..." He gestured with the hand that wasn't holding the drink. "Show me. How do you touch yourself, Shane Hollander?" Fuck. Shane wanted to protest, but since his briefs were not at all concealing how excited his dick had gotten in the past minute or so, he felt his argument would be weak. "Give me some of that vodka then," he said. "I'm too sober for this." Rozanov shook his head. "No, the vodka you can have after, as reward." "Fuck you." Rozanov laughed. "He's good vodka. Come on, look at your poor dick, Hollander. Give him some attention, yes?" Shane glared at him, but Rozanov only crossed his long legs and leaned back in his chair, comfortable as anything. "Close your eyes," he suggested. "Pretend you are alone. How do you start?" Shane exhaled and closed his eyes. He tried to ignore the smirking Russian in the corner as he placed a nervous hand on his own stomach. He rubbed slow patterns over his skin, letting his nerves wake up. He heard Rozanov shifting in his chair. Shane's lips curled up a bit. Maybe he still had some power here. His palm flat, he rubbed his hand over the bulge in his shorts, slow and deliberate. He let out a low, shameless moan and slid his hand lower to cup his balls. If Rozanov wanted a show, he was going to get a fucking show.
"No, the vodka you can have after, as reward." When he returned,
"Please,"
Shane gasped,
begged.
"Please what? Look at your poor dick."
I need..."
Give
He
him
could
some
tell that
attention,
Rozanov
yes?
was starting to lose his
Shane glared
composure.
at him.
He could
But
see how his
Rozanov
Adam's
only
apple
crossed his
bobbed
long legs
sharply
and
as he
leaned back
swallowed,
in his
the
chair,
way he ran his
comfortable as
teeth
anything.
over his bottom lip.
"Close your eyes."
"What do you need, Hollander?"
"Pretend
You-
you are alone.
Fuck
How do
me.
you start?"
"Please."
Shane exhaled.
Rozanov sucked in a
closed his
breath,
eyes.
and then he stood
tried to
and
ignore
placed
the
his glass
smirking
on the
Russian
side
in the
table.
corner.
He
As he
slowly
placed a nervous
undid the
hand
last
on
of
his
his
own
buttons
stomach.
and let the shirt
He rubbed
fall to the
slow
floor
patterns
behind
over
him.
his skin,
He walked to the end of the
letting his
bed,
nerves
and
wake
Shane
up.
crawled to
He
him,
heard
just
Rozanov
like he'd
shifting
imagined
in his
doing.
chair.
He crawled
Shane's
along the
lips
mattress
curled
until
up
his
a bit.
face met
Maybe
the
he still
bulge
had
in
some power
Rozanov's
here.
tuxedo pants.
His palm
He
flat.
nuzzled and
He
mouthed
rubbed
at
his
it,
hand
and
over the
Rozanov
bulge
buried his
shorts,
fingers in
slow
Shane's
and
hair
deliberate.
and murmured
He
something
let out
in
a
Russian.
low, shameless
Shane didn't know
moan
if Rozanov
and
was
slid his
saying something
hand lower to
encouraging
cup his
or
balls.
reverent.
If
Or maybe
Rozanov
he was
wanted a
calling
show,
Shane a
he was going
slut.
to get a fucking
Shane
show.
felt a little slutty in that moment. He felt wild. He wanted Rozanov's cock in every part of him at once. He wanted to come right away or not for hours. He wanted to kiss Rozanov and maybe also punch him for being such an arrogant fucking prick. And he hated himself for wanting any of this, but not enough to stop. Never enough to stop.
He opened Rozanov's pants and pushed them down to his ankles, along with his underwear. He wrapped his mouth around Rozanov's cock and moaned with relief. "Fuck, Hollander, you love it." Shane responded by turning, he was sure, beet red, but he couldn't deny it. Rozanov let him suck for a few blissful minutes before he shoved Shane down onto the bed. He twirled his hand in the air. "Turn over," he said. Shane did as he was told and raised his ass in the air far too eagerly. He heard a rustle of a condom being opened and then saw the empty wrapper hit the floor when Rozanov tossed it aside. Rozanov was breathing himself with lube, and damn, Shane loved it when Rozanov lost his ability to stay cool and collected. Rozanov fucked him hard with one strong hand, pressing between Shane's shoulder blades, pressing him down to the mattress. They were both loud, and if it hadn't been a ridiculously large Las Vegas hotel suite, Shane would have been worried about it. But he felt safe here, so he let himself go. He cried out with every thrust, begging for more, even though that was probably an impossible thing to ask for. Even though it was embarrassing to be this desperate for Ilya Rozanov. Shane really hoped no one could hear them. He came so hard that he actually yelled. There was no other word for it. And once again, he had made a mess of some hotel bed sheets. His ears were still ringing. With his own organ, felt Rozanov freeze behind him and cry out. His forehead was pressed against Shane's back as both men struggled to catch their breath. "Jesus, Hollander," Rozanov panted as he flopped to his back beside him. His hair had fallen out of its little ponytail and was clinging to his forehead in a damp swoop. Shane carefully flipped to his back, leaving the wet spot on the bedsheets between them. "How about that vodka?" Rozanov laughed. "Yes, give me a minute." Shane grinned. He knew he'd be at least a little mortified and ashamed later when he thought about this night, but at that moment, he was giddy. Rozanov did eventually leave the bed, and after cleaning himself in the bathroom, brought Shane a damp washcloth and an ice-cold glass of vodka. He brought himself a cigarette and a lighter. There was no other word for it.
Chapter 13. As soon as Shane entered the penthouse, Rozanov turned and walked toward the bedroom. He didn't say a word to him. Shane removed his shoes, dropped his coat on the floor, and followed him. "The fuck is this?" Shane asked as he entered the bedroom. "You're not speaking to me anymore? Just expect me to follow you like a dog?" "Shh," Rozanov said. He tilted Shane's head up and kissed him hungrily. Shane surrendered immediately, pushing his tongue into the other man's mouth and slipping his hands into the back of his sweatpants. Shane couldn't think of a single reason why they needed to talk to each other anyway. Not anymore. Not when Rozanov was sucking on his tongue and sliding Shane's shirt up his chest. The shirt came off, and Shane shoved Rozanov down to the bed so he was sitting at the end of it. Shane fell to his knees and hauled Rozanov's sweatpants down. He didn't feel like wasting any time. Rozanov wasn't wearing underwear, it was half. Shane took it. "Jesus, Hollander," Rozanov said. He placed a hand on the side of Shane's face. "Couldn't wait, could you?" Shane closed his eyes. He should have felt embarrassed, but he loved the feeling of Rozanov growing harder against his tongue. He never felt submissive doing this. He loved reducing Rozanov to whimpers and Russian profanity. And God help him, he especially loved doing it here, in Rozanov's home, in his bedroom. Their relationship was weird, obviously. Shane knew that nothing about this was normal. The facts were these. They were two of the biggest hockey stars in the world, and for whatever reason, they both enjoyed fucking each other. The other thing they were in total agreement on is that no one could ever know that they enjoyed fucking each other. It would be best if no one knew that they liked to fuck men at all, but it definitely couldn't get out that the superstar rivals were very familiar with each other's dicks. Rozanov brushed a thumb over the freckles on Shane's cheek, just under his eye. "Stop," Rozanov said in a low voice. "Enough. Stop." Shane pulled off and waited. "I'd like to look at you tonight, I think." "You on top?" Rozanov asked. "Okay," Shane said, but the request made him nervous. Rozanov just
took him from behind, on a bed or against a wall. Shane could pretend he was pretending, that Rozanov was someone else that way. Shane quickly pulled off the rest of his clothing. Rozanov took a moment to raise an eyebrow at Shane's rigid, untouched cock. Shane blushed. "Shut up," he muttered. Rozanov grinned and scooted back on the bed, naked and sprawled out with his hands behind his head. Shane couldn't help but grin back. This was so fucking weird, but maybe they could just pretend it wasn't for an hour or so. Maybe they could just be two guys who wanted to have sex. Rozanov slapped his own thighs, an invitation, and Shane went to him. Later, when they were fucking, Shane braced himself with a hand flat on Rozanov's chest. Rozanov covered that hand with his own, which surprised Shane. Rozanov never took his eyes off his face, except to watch when Shane started stroking himself. Shane saw the glazed look in his eyes and the way his mouth was hanging open, and he rode him harder. "Fuck!" Rozanov
request made him nervous. Rozanov just took him from behind,
flipped them both over, stared as he held his legs and thrust into him wildly. His crucifix chain dangled between them, scraping Shane's chest. When Shane's orgasm hit him, it was hard and sudden, his lips splashing his chest and even up to his throat. "Yes, sweetheart," Rozanov panted, and Shane didn't even have a chance to be shocked by the pet name before Rozanov was coming to. When it was over, he dropped to his elbows over Shane and kissed him messily. They took turns getting cleaned up in the bathroom. When Shane walked back into the bedroom, he stood stupidly in the middle of the room, near his pile of clothes on the floor. He should probably go.
Resting against Rozanov like this in his home, watching hockey, full of the food he had just made him. This was exactly what they weren't supposed to be doing. This was what couples did. But Rozanov's chest was so warm and solid, and Shane could hear his heart beating where his ear was pressed against it. Rozanov's fingers were idly playing with his hair, making Shane sleepy and unreasonably happy. Eventually, Rozanov moved his other hand to slide up Shane's thigh and cup him through his jeans. He massaged him with one big, skilled hand, and Shane's cock quickly responded. When the bulge threatened to rip through the denim, Rozanov flicked open the button on his fly and carefully pulled down the zipper. Shane hadn't bothered putting his briefs on again, so his cock popped out, and Rozanov started lazily stroking it at a frustrating pace. Shane squirmed against Rozanov, even thrusting his hips a bit to try to get him to pick up the pace. He rubbed his back against the bulge he could feel in Rozanov's sweatpants, hoping it would inspire a little more urgency in the other man. Rozanov didn't take the bait. He was maddeningly gentle and patient, and had even started to press light kisses to Shane's hair. Shane wasn't sure why he was letting Rozanov drive anyway. He flipped himself around and kissed Rozanov hard. At this angle, Shane was taller than him, and he could thread his fingers through Rozanov's hair, tug his head back, and attack his mouth with as much force as he wanted. His sudden aggression drew a satisfying moan out of Rozanov, and Shane wanted more. He wanted to see how many moans and hiss from him into the tight space between the back of the couch and Rozanov's hip, and pressed himself down. He squeezed him with his thighs, holding Rozanov around his cock against Rozanov's stomach. "Why do I need this so much?" Shane muttered the words against Rozanov's lips and hoped the other man hadn't heard them. "Need what?" Rozanov asked, as if he didn't know. Shane didn't answer. Instead, he raised his hips so he could haul down Rozanov's waistband and pull his cock out. "Fuck, Hollander." Rozanov's head fell back on the arm of the couch, and Shane took the opportunity to kiss and lick and bite his neck. Then he took both of their cocks in his hand and started stroking them. "Yes, do that," Rozanov moaned. It was dry and a little rough.
but it was exactly what Shane wanted. Rozanov bucked up into his hand, and Shane knew it was what he wanted too. He brought their mouths back together and kissed Rozanov wildly. Wait! Rozanov grabbed Shane's wrist and stopped his furious stroking. He pulled Shane's hand to his face and spit in his hand, which was gross, but instead of making a face or bitching at him about it, Shane found it absurdly arousing. The saliva didn't add a ton of lubrication, but by then Shane's cock was leaking enough to make up for it. He stroked faster, with his forehead resting on Rozanov's shoulder. Shane was very close, and judging by the way Rozanov was thrusting his hips and babbling in Russian, he wasn't far behind. "You like that?" he growled. "You going to come for me, Rozanov? Fucking make me, Hollander." Shane gasped, and his stroking became frantic and sloppy, and he was so close. "Come on," he gritted out. Then Rozanov went very still and said, "Oh God, Shane," and he came in hot bursts, coating Shane's hand and allowing Shane to use the slickness to bring himself off almost immediately, with the sound of his first name being spoken in a breathless Russian accent still ringing in his ears. They held each other, both as they waited for their hearts to stop racing. But Shane didn't think his heart would ever stop racing. Shane! He called me Shane. He pulled back so he could see Rozanov's face and was shocked to see him staring at him with the same wide-eyed terror that Shane felt. "Ilya," he said, barely more than a whisper. Ilya didn't answer. Instead, he crushed their mouths together and kissed Shane in a raw, uncontrolled way that felt like an apology. "Oh no. Oh fuck. Oh no." When they broke apart, Ilya rested his forehead against Shane's, and they just breathed together. Shane held Ilya's face in his hands, and Ilya was stroking his back. Was Shane supposed to say something? Nothing had actually been admitted here. No grand declarations, no questions asked. Shane untangled himself from Ilya and stood. "I should go." It was an understatement. Shane needed to get the fuck out of there immediately. He clumsily tucked himself back into he staggered back from Ilya. "Where did I leave my underwear?" "Go? Yeah, I shouldn't stay. I can't. We can't. This is..." Ilya shifted on the couch, stretching one arm across the back and Rachel on his knee. "Hollander. Hollander, you called me Shane." "I know. I just... Team meeting in the morning. I forgot." That made Ilya laugh. It wasn't warm. "You forgot about a team meeting? Sure."
Oh no. When they broke apart, Ilya rested his forehead against Shane's.
Chapter 18. "I thought you were not coming," Ilya said with an annoying little smirk. "Yeah, well..." Ilya's smirk grew into a genuine warm smile. Shane's heart lurched, and then they were kissing, pulling at clothing and stumbling toward the bedroom, not breaking contact. They had to be quick. Shane not only needed to leave soon, he shouldn't even have been there in the first place. Ilya pushed him down on the bed and went to work on him with his mouth. Shane watched him as he licked and sucked his cock and allowed himself a moment to wonder at Ilya's desperate need for this before a game. Why was he so hungry for Shane that he had broken their sacred rule? God, he was good with his mouth. Something is wrong with Ilya. The thought hit Shane suddenly. He should ask him about it. After. For now, Shane reached a hand down and caressed Ilya's face. He let his fingers drift into his soft hair. He played with it gently, and Ilya looked up at him. His eyes were dark, but there was more than lust there. Shane nodded at him, and Ilya turned his gaze down and focused on getting Shane off. Shane came quickly, and Ilya swallowed it all with an encouraging hum. When he was done, he kissed Shane's body until he reached his mouth. Shane kissed him hungrily, and then he flipped them both over and slid in the favor. In the wake of his own release, Shane could feel himself starting to panic. This was weird and bad and weird. They should 1,000% not be doing this, which was like 1% more than the usual amount that they should not be fucking doing this. Except Ilya was breathing Shane's name, his first name, like a prayer, and gazing at him like he was just as close as Shane was to saying something truly embarrassing and stupid and definite. Shane dug
his fingers into the hard muscle of Ilya's thighs, hooked deeper into his mouth. If he kept his mouth busy, he wouldn't be able to use it to ruin everything. Ilya warned him because he knew Shane didn't always like to take it in his mouth. But this time Shane did want it, and he sucked harder until Ilya cried out in a mixture of Russian and English and came down Shane's throat. Shane flopped beside Ilya on the bed. Ilya started laughing. "What?" Shane asked. "Fuck." Shane didn't reply, but he felt the same way. "I have to go," he said after a quiet minute. "Yes." Shane sat up and moved to leave the bed when he remembered. "Hey, are you all right?"
Which was like 1% more than the usual amount, but they should not be fucking doing this. Except Ilya was breathing Shane's name.
Chapter 20. Ilya wanted, more than anything, to be able to cover Shane's body with his own, to kiss his way down his chest and stomach. Shane smiled. "It's good to see you again. I'd like to see you wearing nothing but those glasses," Ilya said. "I don't think my camera can show that much at once. Next time we are together, then." "Yeah, next time." Ilya let his head sink into the pillows. He kept it turned, facing the camera. "Do you remember after the NHL awards in... what year was it?" 2014, Shane said quickly. "Yeah, I do. I think about that night a lot." "Do you?" "It was memorable." "It was," Ilya agreed.
"I have to go," he said after
"On a show for me. I can't believe you talked me into that." "I told what to do, Hollander." A breath. "Maybe. And you're a little show-off." "I am not." "You are. You love praise. You want everyone to see how good you are." "Yeah, well, so do you." "No, I know I am good. I don't care what people say." Shane leaned forward and pointed an accusing finger at the camera. "Bullshit. You love the awards, the good press, the fans. You love beating me." "I love beating everyone, but yes, you the most." "Why?" Ilya shrugged. "Because you are the best." "I'm not. What about Scott Hunter? You like to beat him too. You're always talking shit about that guy." Ilya waved a hand dismissively. "Hunter is a million years old, and he's like 3 years older than us, and he's been on fire lately." "Whatever. I don't want to talk about Scott Hunter. I think you just have a fetish for good boys." Ilya laughed. "Is that what you are?" "That's what you say," Shane said. "What everyone says." But I know the truth about you. I was the one in that hotel room in Vegas with you, yes? No one else." "Yeah," Shane breathed. "Just you. Are you hard right now, Hollander?" "What do you think?" Ilya smirked. "Show me. Get on your knees. Face the camera. Show me." Shane obeyed immediately, which Ilya found incredibly hot. His head went out of the frame, but Ilya could see his abs and the way his sweatpants pulled tight against his obvious bulge when Shane spread his knees wide on the mattress. "You too," Shane said off camera. "I want to see." Ilya copied Shane's position, showing Shane exactly how aroused he was already. Fuck, he wished they were together somewhere. "I wish you were here," Shane said before Ilya could. "Yes, what would you do?" "I'd take those pants off." Ilya smiled, though Shane couldn't see it now. He tucked his thumbs into the waistband of his track pants and slid them down off his hips. When he looked up, he saw Shane stroking himself through the fabric of his sweatpants. "No underwear," Shane observed. "You were planning for this?" "Maybe." He wrapped his hand around his cock and stroked it slowly. "My pants are off. What would you do now?" Shane dipped down into the frame. His head was cocked and his hair flopped to the side. It was fucking adorable. He smiled at Ilya. "I think you know exactly what I'd do after all these years. Still want to hear it?" Shane's face left the screen. He gripped himself harder through his sweatpants and moaned. "I'd take you in my mouth. I'd suck you all the way down. Fuck, I wish I could, right now." Me too. Love your mouth, Hollander."
He'd love a lot of, would you want me to fuck your mouth? Or just keep still and let you do the work? Keep still. I'd do it. Make you feel so good. And now Ilya moaned. Shane yanked his pants and briefs down so they were stretched wide across his spread thighs. He stroked himself, sliding lit. Ilya knew it must be wet. Shane always leaked like a fountain. They both stroked themselves without talking for a minute or two, and then Ilya saw Shane's hand pause and drop to his side. Hey, Ilya? Yes? He watched Shane's hand lift out of the frame, probably so Shane could run it nervously through his hair. Ilya stilled his own hand. Something wrong? No, but I think I'd rather see your face. Ilya was grateful that Shane couldn't see his face at that exact moment, because he was pretty sure it had the world's sappiest expression. Sure, Hollander, he said gently. Shane laid himself back down on the bed, with his head nestled on one of his pillows. He reached and pulled his tablet closer to his face and smiled shyly. Ilya melted a little more and positioned himself the same way on his bed, pulling his lips. I forgot about the glasses, Ilya said. Already? You really like them, huh? I do. Shane beamed at him. Ilya couldn't stop himself from smiling back.
Just your freckles. Shane shook his head a little on the pillow. Thanks, I guess. I told you, Ilya grinned. You love praise. When Shane didn't reply, Ilya said, and you like to hog it all for yourself, you asshole. Shane laughed and his nose crinkled. The freckles got all bunched up under his glasses, and Ilya nearly died. You're very attractive, Ilya, Shane said in an exaggerated, placating tone. Not good enough. I want details. Shane opened his eyes and rolled them, but he said, that crooked fucking smile of yours. I can't even tell you. That smile haunts me. Haunts you? Like a ghost? That doesn't sound like a good thing. It is. And your eyes. I love your eyes. So romantic, Hollander. Fuck you. You asked for compliments. Are you even doing anything down there, or am I the only one doing any work? Ilya laughed. You're not the only one. Good. Off camera, Ilya hauled his pants the rest of the way down and off. Hold on, Shane said. I need to grab the loop. Ilya took the opportunity to do the same. Surprised you even need it, he said. You get so wet. Shane snorted, as if. They were quiet for a minute, just gazing at each other as they stroked themselves with slicked fingers. Do you ever think of me? Shane asked. When you're doing this? Alone? He blushed furiously as soon as he said it. Cute as hell. Yes. I do too. A lot. All the time. Maybe every time, honestly. Ilya raised an eyebrow. Every time? He saw Shane's shoulder lift in a tiny shrug. I've never had anything like this with anyone else. You have not been with another man? Ilya may have held his breath as he waited. I have. Ilya, of course he had. Who hadn't meant to blurt that out, but it was too late to take it back. Shane pressed his lips together. No one. Stop distracting me. But now Ilya was curious. Shane was so careful. Who would he risk having sex with? Tell me, was it another player? No. Ilya decided the only way to get this information out of Shane was to make it sexy. Did you go to a bar? Did you see someone you could not resist? I went to Mexico with Hayden and a couple of the other guys. A few, years ago. We went out one night, and yeah, I was terrified, but fuck, it had been so long. You don't let yourself have release enough, Hollander. I don't know how you do it. Shane laughed, a little darkly. I haven't come since I saw you last, you know that? Ilya inhaled sharply and sped up his hand. It occurred to him that he hadn't had an orgasm in a couple of days himself, which was an epic drought for him. Tell me about this man in Mexico. There's not much to tell. He was big. He looked like he was, what I was looking for. A big, strong top? Shane looked so embarrassed, Ilya took pity. Was he what you needed? No, I mean, sort of, but did he hurt you? No, he just wasn't. Ilya needed to hear it. Wasn't what? Shane clenched his eyes shut and said,
You. He wasn't you. Ilya damn near lost it. Shane was saying things like that. Was he the only one? Ilya couldn't stop the questions from falling out of his mouth now. There was a guy in L.A. at a club. I went out by myself. I was desperate. And we sucked each other off. I was nervous the whole time. Ah, and that was it. 2 guys. God. Mexico top, Hollywood blowjob guy, and me. Shane laughed. Yeah, and a bunch of disappointed women. A bunch? A few. Anyway, I'm trying to jerk off here, so Ilya laughed. They both went back to the task at hand. Hey, Ilya said. He woggled his eyebrows playfully. Do you think you can beat me? It took Shane a second. Then he laughed. You want a race? Come on, Hollander. Let's see what you got. Shane shook his head, but he was grinning. You're an idiot, he said affectionately. Fine, bring it. And those words of challenge caused a bolt of desire to rocket through Ilya. He should have no problem winning this battle. I think, Shane said, his voice strained already, I think the winner should be whoever holds out longest. More impressive. No way. You would cheat. I would not. Cheat how? I can't see your hand. You could just stop. I won't. Ilya shrugged. Fine. You always shoot off so fast anyway. Will be an easy win for me. Shane scowled at him, but then something caused his eyes to squeeze shut, and he let out a quiet little gasp. Ilya chuckled. Fucking hopeless, he said. Then Shane opened his eyes, and there was definitely something dangerous in them. You know, the night of the draft, in that hotel gym? Ilya groaned. Fuck. I wanted to pin you to the floor. I could not stop staring at your mouth. I thought you would notice. I didn't. I was too busy trying to stop myself from straddling you, kissing you. Fuck, Shane. I couldn't believe how much I wanted to. It terrified me. I had never wanted a man? Ilya huffed. No, at least I didn't think I did. But you, God, Ilya. I went right back to my room and jerked off thinking about you. Now Ilya squeezed his eyes shut. He stroked himself harder, faster. He suddenly couldn't care less about winning this dumb contest. He gasped out, "Me too." Shane groaned, and they both worked themselves roughly as the room filled with the sounds of their breathing. "I can't wait to touch you again," Shane murmured. Then he sucked in a breath and let out a high, manic sound, and Ilya knew if he just held on for another minute, he would win because Shane was definitely about to come. Ah, fuck. Damn it. I'm so close, Shane gasped. Ilya couldn't even respond. He forced his eyes open so he could lock his gaze with Shane's. "Oh, fuck," Shane said quietly. "I'm coming." And normally he would want to see it, but in that moment, he couldn't imagine anything sexier than Shane Hollander's face as he came. Ilya felt pleasure flood every part of him as he climaxed hard, covering his fist and his stomach with his release. "Holy fuck," Shane panted. "That was huge. I'm a mess over here." Ilya flopped onto his back and stared up at the ceiling. "I'm fucked," he murmured in Russian. "I am so fucking in love, and it's horrible."
Me too. Shane groaned.
Chapter 23.
They both worked themselves roughly as the room
They stood for a
filled
moment,
with sounds of
silently
breathing.
staring at each
I
other,
can't wait to
waiting
touch
for
you
whatever
again.
was going to
Shane
happen
let out-
next.
and he sucked in a breath
Finally,
and let out
Ilya
a high,
reached a
manic
hand up
sound,
and brushed the
and
backs
Ilya
of his
knew if
fingers
he
against
just held
Shane's
on
cheek.
for another minute, he
Shane
would win
unconsciously
because
licked
Shane
his
was
lip,
definitely
and
about
Ilya
to
moved
come.
in to kiss her.
Ah, fuck.
The moment
Damn it.
Shane's mouth
I'm so
opened under
close,
his,
Shane gasped.
everything
Ilya
made
couldn't
sense.
even respond.
All of
He
Ilya's
forced his eyes
nerves
open
left
so
him,
he could
and
lock
he
his
grabbed
gaze
at
with
Shane's
Shane.
t-shirt and pulled him closer.
Shane said
Shane
quietly.
made a little moaning
Coming.
sound and plunged his
Normally, he
fingers
would
under
want to see
Ilya's
it,
bald
but
cap,
in that
knocking
moment,
it to
he
the
couldn't
floor.
imagine anything
He tangled his
sexier than
fingers in
Shane
Ilya's
Hollander's
hair and
face
began
as he
walking
came.
him backward to the
Ilya
leather
felt
sofa.
pleasure flood
They
every
hadn't
part
been
of
together
him as
for
he
months.
climaxed hard.
The ridiculous
covering
thing
his
was,
fist and his
Ilya
stomach
hadn't
with
been
his
with
release.
anyone in all that
Holy
time.
fuck.
For the first
Shane
time in his
panted.
life,
He hadn't wanted to be with anyone else. But now he felt like he was going to burst if Shane didn't touch him the way he had not been able to stop. He went willingly down to the sofa when Shane shoved him. He kept a firm grip on Shane's t-shirt, so the other man immediately tumbled on top of him. Ilya winced as his sunglasses were pressed into his chest. Then he pulled them off and threw them, clattering to the floor. Ilya kissed Shane wildly, jerking his hips up to get more friction on his cock, and was delighted to feel that Shane was as hard as he was. He pulled Shane's shirt off over his head and slid his hands down to open Shane's fly. Fuck, Shane panted. It's been kind of a while. I might not last long. Yes, same. But we have 2 weeks, right? Shane laughed. Right. Then, wait. Same? You said same. You haven't been with anyone lately? Ilya grimaced. He probably shouldn't have admitted that. But, no. Like, not since. No, not since. Can we please get back to. Really? Shane pulled back so he could look Ilya directly in the eyes. He looked stunned and way too happy. It's not a big deal, Hollander. Relax. It's been like months. Yes, which is why I would really like to. I haven't either, Shane said. Not since the last time we were together, in Boston. Well then, Ilya said, moving his hand to continue to work his way into Shane's pants. But Shane didn't go back to grinding his hips or attacking Ilya's mouth with filthy. He reached up and gently brushed out of Ilya's face. Ilya could only stare, mesmerized at Shane's face as he looked down at him with so much tenderness. I have an idea, Shane said. He was brushing his thumb over Ilya's bottom lip as he said it. What? Ilya asked with more bravery than he felt. Each other. For these 2 weeks, let's just say what we're actually thinking. Maybe say how we really feel. I can't, Ilya wanted to say. I can't because if I do, you'll think I'm pathetic. Or worse, and then what the fuck are we supposed to do? I will, he said instead. Will you? Shane asked.
Which is why I would really like to.
Yes, I will make you touch my dick right now.
Well then,
Shane laughed and rolled his eyes, but then he slid down Ilya's body and hauled down and thank Christ. Shane took him into his mouth and every again. Ilya felt a wave of pleasure mingle with a wave of relief, and he was able to relax and enjoy the determined way Shane was sucking him off. Ilya cheated and murmured, I would stay here forever if I could. He felt Shane's sigh around him, but it sounded more dreamy than exasperated. Maybe he understood what he meant. Maybe some feelings couldn't be behind foreign words. As expected, Ilya didn't last long. Neither did Shane when Ilya immediately returned the favor. The same thing was that the blowjobs were not renewed. Afterward, now that they had taken the edge off, they just relaxed sofa. The clothing that had stayed on their bodies was rumpled and unfastened. Their hair was messy. They talked quietly to each other as there was no other word for it, over an hour. Shane was twisting strands of Ilya's hair around his fingers and gently releasing them. Ilya was tracing his fingertips over Shane's freckles. Every Ilya would cough, or his throat, the tip of his Ilya couldn't believe what he had been reduced to. He was infatuated. It was disgusting. But it was hard to care when Shane was lying on top of his chest and stomach, touching every inch of Ilya's own. His bound to brush Ilya's nose and his freckles and his smile.
Neither did Shane when Ilya
looked happy. Somehow, Ilya wanted to be happy.
Afterward, now that they had
quickly
removed
his clothing, he
relaxed
found the general direction, then sprawled out on his back and watched Ilya peel his own shirt off. Ilya slid a hand down his own bare chest. He paused at the button on his shorts and raised an eyebrow at Shane. What's this Magic Mike shit? Shane asked, grinning.
Ilya responded by pushing both hands into his own hair and tilting his head back dramatically. He thrust his crotch out, and Shane cracked up. Here,
Ilya would enjoy his
help you. He crawled on it until he could press his mouth against Ilya's stomach. He licked along Ilya's muscle. Ilya let out a shaky breath. Don't tease me, Ilya said. Too long for this. Shane opened the front of Ilya's shorts and playfully nipped at his chest. Months, years, Ilya sighed. Years I have wanted to have you in your real bed. Shane froze. Years? Long fingers around Shane's jaw and tilted his head up to meet his gaze. Yes, Shane swallowed. Get those shorts off, he managed to scrape out. Ilya had barely slipped the last of his clothing off before Shane reached for him. He needed to feel his weight on him. He needed to kiss him and touch him and feel him grow hard against him, although it looked like he was a little late for that. Ilya was here, and Shane would finally know what it was like to be with him when they had all the time they wanted. Ilya had promised him 2 weeks, and Shane was giddy with the vastness of time that was spread before him. Ilya kissed him, slowly and greedily. His erection brushed against Shane's belly, and Shane wriggled against it to give Ilya as much friction as possible. Ilya responded by gripping both of Shane's wrists and pinning them to the mattress. "Oh," Shane gasped. He shamelessly tipped his head back to give Ilya better access to his throat. Ilya took advantage of his genital in a sensitive spot just under the hinge of Shane's jaw. Ilya was going to leave a mark, a hickey, if he kept sucking at Shane's neck, but Shane realized that it didn't matter. For the first time ever, they didn't have to worry about evidence, about anything, or know what happened here. Shane, see it later. Ilya growled and pressed his mouth harder to Shane's skin. He sucked hard enough that for a hysterical second, Shane wondered if he might actually be a vampire. Are there Russian vampires? No, dummy. Vampires aren't real. Just as the pain was crossing over to uncomfortable, Ilya pulled away. Shane was flooded with relief and the delicious burn that pulsed from the spot where Ilya had marked him. Ilya gently licked the spot, and Shane squirmed happily. Mine. Ilya's breath tickled Shane's belly. The word, yours, Shane said dreamily. All of this, for 2 weeks, is mine. Forever. Forever, it grasped. He knew it was impossible, but in that moment he would do anything to make it work. There had to be a solution to their problem, but for now he just said, "Fuck me, please." Ilya sat up and then flipped Shane to his stomach. He laid a light kiss between Shane's shoulder blades. Oh God, Shane wanted this. He wanted to thrust his ass into the air and to command Ilya to hurry the fuck up. But Ilya was making a slow journey down Shane's body, placing a soft kiss on each notch of his spine. He was in no hurry at all. Gorgeous, Ilya sighed between kisses. The word in his accent was dark and lush. It slid over Shane's skin, and in that moment he felt gorgeous. Ilya leaned his spine, and Shane expected him to pull away, maybe grab the lube, but instead Ilya did something he had never done before. He kept going. His tongue slipped into the crease of Shane's ass as his big hands pulled his cheeks apart. Shane held his breath. He couldn't believe Ilya was actually going to... Oh, God, Ilya. Shane felt the wet heat of Ilya's tongue lapping at his hole, and he had never experienced anything like it. It was impossibly intimate. It was so bold and fearless, and so Ilya. His tongue paused a moment, and Ilya said, "Good? Fucking great." He heard Ilya chuckle, but the lapping continued. Shane's eyes rolled back, and he groaned. How could something be so relaxing and so exciting at the same time? He was almost angry that Ilya had been holding him out all this time, but that wouldn't be fair. Shane appreciated this for the gift it was. He was wild with need. His cock was rigid against the mattress, and it took all of his willpower not to start humping the bed. He didn't want to move at all, because that might make Ilya
over Shane's skin. Ilya was just as the pain was
stopped, and Shane longer Ilya could keep up. It was inside him, warm and slippery and intrusive. It was somewhere it definitely was not supposed to be, but it felt so good. Fuck, Ilya. Holy God, that's amazing. Thank you. Fuck. The thank you was embarrassing, but Shane didn't dwell on it, just like he refused to be embarrassed by the desperate noises Ilya was drawing out of him by fucking his ass with his tongue. Shane was going to come. The realization hit him suddenly, and in a panic, he jerked his hips off the bed to remove any friction against his aching cock. Unfortunately, the move also caused him to smash Ilya in the face with his ass. What the fuck, Hollander? Sorry. He turned to look over his shoulder, and Ilya was rubbing his jaw and scowling. I'm sorry, Shane said again. I didn't want to come yet. Ilya rolled his eyes, but his lips twitched. I guess that is a compliment. It is, Shane agreed quickly. He flipped over to his back. That felt incredible. Good. Did you like doing that? Ilya nodded. Yes, I did, until you bashed me in the face. Shane bit his lip to keep from grinning, but Ilya noticed. With a snort that didn't really sound angry, Ilya bent down until their faces were inches apart. Shane tilted his chin up for a kiss before he remembered where Ilya's mouth had just been. Did he care? No. He leaned up and kissed him, and he didn't really taste much of anything. It was just the familiar heat of Ilya's mouth on his. He felt the press of Ilya's hard cock on his hip, and the need to have it inside him flared right back up in Shane. Please. Ilya looked around, and Shane pointed to the nightstand to the right of the bed. Ilya opened the drawer and pulled out a bottle of lube and a condom, but he didn't close the drawer right away. What? Shane asked. I was hoping there would be toys. I don't keep any here. You have a big stash in Montreal? Shane blushed. No. Still just one lonely dildo? Yes. Shane slammed his head back on the pillow. He was not above whining at this point. Please shut up and fuck me. Ilya wasted no time positioning himself between Shane's legs and driving into him. Shane wasn't sure if he was trying to say be careful what you wish for, but Shane wasn't feeling sorry at all. Shane cried out into the room. He let himself be as loud as he had always wanted to be, because he could.
Shane tilted his chin up for a kiss before he remembered where Ilya's mouth had just been.
Yes, I want to hear. Slammed into her, making the headboard bang again. Shane reached a hand up to steady it, but Ilya just covered his hand, bracing himself against the wall and fucking him even harder. Shane lifted his legs and rested his ankles on Ilya's shoulders. Ilya growled and lunged forward, folding Shane in half and sighed him. Ilya's face was slit and his eyes were wild. Shane. Fuck. Holy shit, you're amazing, Shane. So fucking good. Shane could only make high, whimpery noises in response. He was going to come. There was nothing touching his dick, but it was going to happen. Any second now. You look like. Are you going to come, Hollander? Yeah, Shane gasped. Oh, fuck, yes. Come on. Ilya thrust faster, keeping his eyes on Shane's dick, and then Shane erupted. He screamed and arched and watched with Ilya as his dick coated his stomach and chest. Shane. It was the only word Ilya managed to grit out before he stilled and came inside him. For long moments, neither of them moved. They both panted and gazed at each other, and there were words that Shane was dangerously close to saying. He could feel them thrashing around inside him, desperate to get out, but he forced them down. And then Ilya placed a palm on the side of Shane and just looked at him, and for a wild second, Ilya thought he was going to be the one to say those forbidden words, but he didn't. Instead, he pulled out on the mattress beside him. Shane rolled to his side, and Ilya did the same, facing him. Shane smiled, because the last time he had this view of him, Ilya was in Moscow, and Shane was in Montreal.
He was going to come. There was nothing touching his dick.
Chapter 25.
Going to happen.
What the fuck? You can't pick Montreal. I just did, Ilya pointed out, gesturing his PlayStation controller at the television. Well then, I'm picking Boston. Good choice. I'm gonna fucking destroy you. I am you. You aren't anything, Shane grumbled. Ilya laughed and nudged him hard. I'm on the cover of the game. Shane shoved him against the arm of the couch. Big deal. They had barely gotten past the first puck drop when Shane's phone rang.
They both panted and gazed at each other.
Shane glanced at it. I should get it. Ilya rolled his eyes and hit Hayden. He didn't actually know Hayden Pike at all. He knew he was an average forward, extremely unremarkable in the looks department, and Shane's best friend. Shane walked a few steps behind the couch, standing between the living room and the kitchen. Hey, Hayden, how's the baby? Ilya smirked. Shane had forgotten Hayden's baby's name. Amber, right. Is she good? Hayden must have had a very long answer to that question, because Shane went silent for a while. Ilya endured about 5 minutes of Shane saying nothing but, "Oh yeah, that's cool," and "Right," before he stood and gave Shane a look. Shane shrugged at him. "What do you want me to do?" Ilya had an idea. He crossed the room until he was standing right in front of Shane. He gave him a little smile, and Shane furrowed his brow at him. Ilya's gaze darted down to Shane's crotch, then back up again. Shane shook his head silently. "So, how's Jackie doing?" Shane asked the phone. "Tired?" Ilya unfastened the button on Shane's shorts. Shane shook his head again, more forcefully this time, but he wasn't like stopping him. Ilya slowly pulled down the zipper and was rewarded with a sharp inhale from Shane. Shane's shorts dropped to the floor, and Ilya sank to his knees. He glanced up and saw Shane mouthing, "Don't!" Eyes bugged wide. Ilya made a show of putting his hands behind his back. Shane's eyes shot daggers at him. Then they turned up to the ceiling. "My head's a lot better. Totally recovered, I think. Still get headaches sometimes, but yeah, exactly. I've been working out, yeah." Ilya watched Shane's cock intently. He knew Shane. Frankly, this was one of the only times he'd seen his poor, undersexed dick soft. Usually it was as straight as a fucking rod whenever Ilya was in its vicinity. Shane's dick was exactly like the rest of Shane, tidy and smooth and eager. His balls were almost hairless, and Ilya was sure that, like Shane's chest, that was natural. His seemingly disinterested cock slumped over them, nestled in a neat patch of dark hair. He wanted to take it all in his mouth. He wanted to feel Shane grow hard against his tongue, but he'd made a promise, and he could wait. He turned his eyes up to Shane's face and caught him looking down at him. Ilya licked his lips. Oh, it's cool. When did that happen? Pressed his lips to cheeks flushed. Ilya smiled, because sure enough, Shane's cock had twitched and was starting to plump up. Ilya enjoyed the rare, intimate spectacle. Shane's hand curled into a fist at his side. His eyes squeezed shut, like he was trying to stop his erection from happening through concentration. Wasn't working at all. Shane was fully hard in under a minute, the head of his cock bobbing excitedly in front of Ilya's lips. "Wow," Shane said, his voice straining. "So, do you think she's gonna..." "Oh, right. Yeah." Ilya ignored the head of Shane's cock and dipped his head lower. He cupped Shane's balls gently in his hand and pressed his lips to them. Shane's body jerked, but he didn't move away. "Sorry," Shane said to Hayden, his voice remarkably even. "Is Mark your sister's husband?" "Oh, okay. Got it." Ilya sucked one of Shane's balls into his mouth, enjoying the heavy weight of it. Shane made the tiniest little moan. This was great. Ilya loved playing like this. He wasn't even sure what the goal was of this game, but the fact that Shane hadn't ended the call led Ilya to believe that he was enjoying the challenge of staying quiet. To his credit, Shane's whimper was barely audible when Ilya started stroking a finger behind his balls. Ilya was proud of him, but he still wasn't going to make this easy for him. Starting at the base, Ilya licked a wide stripe up the shaft after Shane's cock, finishing by lapping cum at the tip.
tip.
head of his cock bobbing excitedly in front
Shane
of
said,
lips.
then grimaced. Ilya put his considerable blowjob skills to taking Shane deep and bobbing his fingers into the muscles of Shane's thighs. Oh yeah? That's cool, Shane stammered into his phone. Ilya glanced up at him. Shane stared right back at him, cheeks flushed and eyes challenging. Ilya couldn't believe Shane hadn't hung up yet. Did he really want Ilya to make him come while he was still on the phone? Ilya kept going, and Shane's voice got more and more strained. How on earth was he sing this? Eyes trembled under Ilya's hands and his stomach flexing. And Ilya was fascinated to handle this because he was definitely about to come. Shane pulled the phone away from his ear and frantically hit the mute button.
To his credit,
fuck.
Shane's whimper was barely audible when Ilya started stroking
His free hand grabbed Ilya's shoulder, fingers painfully, as he spasmed
to make this easy for him.
and emptied himself into Ilya. Shane took a deep breath, in and out, once his orgasm. Sorry, bad connection out here sometimes. Ilya scrambled to the couch so he could smother his laughter with a pillow. Shane must have ended the call, because suddenly he was on top of Ilya, arming with another pillow. Fuck you, you asshole. That was the word. Ilya pulled the pillow he was holding to his face away. It was not. God, fuck you. Why was that so hot? Because you like to be bad, Shane Hollander. And whoa, saying those exact words inside of Ilya. He was just teasing Shane, but he wondered if those words were true. Was that perhaps all this was to Shane? Rebellion? Was that all he was? His worry must have shown on his face because Shane stopped hitting him with the pillow. He pulled Ilya's hand to his mouth, kissed his palm. Not why I do this with you. Maybe it was when we started, I don't know, but it isn't now, and it hasn't been for a long time. Ilya moved the hand Shane was holding to brush the hair out of Shane's eyes. Okay, why do you do it now? He wanted to ask, but he was scared of the answer, so instead he pulled Shane down for a kiss. So, Ilya said casually when they broke apart, how's Jackie? Shane collapsed against his chest, and Ilya held him as they both shook with laughter.
Suddenly he was on top of Ilya, arming with another pillow. Fuck you, you ass.
Ilya got the urge to pin him down, as if he would disappear if Ilya didn't keep a tight grip on him. He wrapped his fingers around Shane's wrists and held them to the pillow on either side of Shane's head. This is real, yes? Ilya asked. He just had to make sure. It's real, Shane said. His voice was low and adorably scratchy. I feel like I am dreaming. You're not. I love you. Ilya wasn't sure his heart could take any more of this. It felt like it was pushing up against his lungs, making it hard to breathe, hard to think, hard to do anything except hold Shane down and kiss him over and over again. Shane's back bowed against the mattress, and he pressed his rigid cock against Ilya's thigh. I want to be as close as possible to you, he said breathlessly. You are. No, I want. Tell me. I want to be in your lap when you fuck me, facing you, holding you. Fuck, yes. He trailed off when Ilya wrapped his hand around both of their cocks. I want that too, Ilya said. I love you. They moved quickly, Ilya sitting with his back against the headboard and Shane straddling his lap. They kissed for a long time like that, as Ilya continued to stroke their cocks together. Oh, God, Shane shuddered. You have to stop. I need you inside me. Not yet. Stroke yourself for me. Can't. Ilya, I'll come, I swear. Stroke yourself. A little. I think you can do it and not come. Ilya had no idea why he got so much enjoyment from causing Shane distress, but he did. He loved to see him all agitated and struggling to keep control. If you love me, Ilya added obnoxiously. Shane's eyes narrowed. I'm starting to question that. Ilya shook his head, grinning. You love me. Show me how much. Stroke yourself and maybe I will fuck you. As if there was even a chance
chance that Ilya wouldn't. Shane wrapped trembling fingers around his cock and very carefully dragged them up the length of his shaft. Ilya gasped at this display of obedience. He knew Shane wasn't lying about how dangerously close he was. His slit was dripping pre-cum. I love how fucking wet you get, Shane. Shut up. Shane's whole body was shaking. I'm trying to concentrate. Ilya chuckled. Your dick wants you to go faster. Can't go faster, Shane gritted out. Ilya lightly cupped Shane's balls, causing Shane to hiss out a breath and a string of profanity. So tight, Hollander. Keep going. Shane whimpered. You bastard. You have to fuck me. Soon. Now. A fresh bead of pre-cum spurted out, and Ilya caught it on his fingertip. Shane watched wide-eyed as Ilya sucked the finger into his mouth. God, Ilya, you are... Fuck. Would you please fuck me? Shane panted. All right. Enough was enough. Ilya reached for the lube and a condom from the bedside table and got himself ready. And oh God, when Shane sank down on him, his whole body trembling with need, it was the most incredible thing Ilya had ever felt. He rocked up into Shane's body as Shane held Ilya's face and kissed him. He felt Shane everywhere. Shane braced himself with a hand on the headboard and the other on Ilya's shoulder, and used all of his considerable strength to ride the hell out of Ilya's cock. He trapped Ilya's hips between his solid thighs and pounded that perfect ass down on Ilya's lap, over and over and fuck. Shane threw his head back, and Ilya watched his cock bounce in the space between them. Ilya wondered if Shane would shoot instantly if he touched it. He wondered if Shane would shoot anyway, without any contact on his glistening cock. So good, Ilya. Holy shit. Fuck, I am so fucking close. And suddenly Ilya realized that he was too. He had the endurance of a stallion with most partners, but he couldn't ever seem to control his body when he was with Shane. Do it. Fuck. Give it to me, Hollander. I'm right there. I love you. I love you. Oh shit, here it comes. They both cried out as Shane's release splashed against Ilya's chest. His body spasmed around Ilya's cock, and Ilya was hurled over the edge, coming hard with a garbled, I love you. Oh my God. Shane wheezed. His forehead landed on Ilya's shoulder. That was perfect. Yes, perfect. Ilya wrapped his arms around him and held him tight, as close as possible. And pounded that perfect ass down on Ilya's lap.
Chapter 27. It was exactly how Ilya had secretly always wanted to kiss Shane, a shameless display of adoration and care. Their tongues slowly caressing as Ilya held Shane's face in his hands and brushed his hair with his fingertips. His heart flipped and tumbled helplessly around in his chest. There would be no going back from this, from any of this. I keep thinking about logistics, Shane said when they broke apart, as if Ilya hadn't just poured his heart into that kiss. Like, the earliest you would be in Ottawa would be the season after next, when your contract is done with Boston, right? Ilya did not want to talk about any of this right now. Yes, probably. He nibbled behind Shane's ear, hoping to distract him. So just over a year from now, you're in Ottawa, and then we wait, what, another whole season until we announce the charity? It would have to be that long, right? Ilya said. He really didn't care. So that's a year and a half or so until we can announce the charity, which is the same as announcing our friendship, Shane said as Ilya slid his hands into the back of his shorts and pulled him closer. And then what? Shane continued. How many more years do you think you'll be playing? Fuck, Hollander, Ilya groaned. I don't fucking know. I'm just trying to get an idea of how long we'll be... What are you doing? Ilya had dropped to his knees, and he felt it was pretty obvious what he was doing. I am celebrating, Ilya said. He tugged Shane's shorts down until they hit the wood of the deck. You should join me. Now? My head is racing. How can you even be thinking about sex right now? Because it is a beautiful day, and we are alone, and I met your parents, and I want you to calm the fuck down, and I love you. Oh.
Probably.
Ilya leaned in and took all of him in his mouth, enjoying the novel sensation of the soft flesh resting on his tongue. Oh, fuck, Ilya, Shane gasped. That's more like it. He wanted to fuck Shane right here on the deck, but that would require stopping so he could go inside to grab lube and a condom. Stopping was unappealing. For now, he put all of his efforts into taking Shane apart. You're way too good at that, Shane sighed. Ilya hummed his agreement. The thought hit him that this was it. This was going to be his sex life now. No more meaningless but undeniably hot one-night stands. No more booty calls while he was on the road. He was going to give it all up for this chance at something lasting, for the chance to hold the heart of the beautiful man who was exhaling Ilya's name like it was the most important word in the world. Ilya had no problem giving it all up. He would give up so much more if he needed to. Ilya, God, Ilya, so good. Don't stop. I love you. In response, Ilya reached for his hand and tangled their fingers together. I love you so much. Don't leave me. Oh, yes. Fuck, yes. I'm gonna... Oh, holy shit, Ilya. Fuck. Fuck. Ilya squeezed his hand as Shane pulsed and spurted into his mouth. Ilya swallowed and licked him clean with long, lazy strokes of his tongue. Fuck, get up here, Shane panted. Ilya rose to his feet, pulling Shane's shorts up with him, and Shane hauled him in for a very sloppy kiss. When they broke apart, Shane gazed up at him with sex-drunk eyes. Wow, he said. We're really gonna do this, aren't we? The statement was vague, but Ilya understood. Yes, if you want to try this, I will do what I need to do. I will too. Anything. I want this. I want us. Ilya brushed Shane's hair out of his eyes. Then I am moving to Ottawa, I think. And we're starting a charity. And we will become friends. And we'll see each other all the time, as much as possible, and spend the summers together, here. Yes. They kissed again. Ilya couldn't believe they had solved this impossible problem. Maybe it wouldn't go as smoothly as they imagined, but it was a plan. Yes. Fuck, yes. I'm gonna... Oh, holy shit, Ilya. Fuck. Fuck. Ilya squeezed his hand as Shane pulsed and spurted into his mouth. Ilya swallowed and licked him clean with long, lazy strokes of his tongue. Fuck, get up here, Shane panted. Ilya rose to his feet, pulling Shane's shorts up with him, and Shane hauled him in for a very sloppy kiss. When they broke apart, Shane gazed up at him with sex-drunk eyes. Wow, he said.
Welcome to this audio edit, inspired by Rachel Reid's Heated Rivalry.
Yes.
This video focuses on the most intense and emotionally charged moments between Shane and Ilya. These chapters are about tension, desire, and the connection that keeps pulling them back together. If you love slow-burning rivalry turning into something dangerous and irresistible, you are in the right place. Disclaimer. This audio is an adaptation inspired by Rachel Reid's Heated Rivalry. It highlights mature romantic moments centered on chemistry, longing, and emotional closeness rather than explicit detail. This video is intended for adult audiences and focuses on storytelling atmosphere and connection. Prologue. The knock at the door came almost 40 minutes later. It had been enough time that Shane had almost convinced himself to leave, to put an end to this foolishness. But of course, he hadn't. And if the knock had come hours later even, Shane would still have been on that sofa, waiting for it. He opened the door. "What the fuck took you so long?" he asked, annoyed. "We were celebrating. Big win tonight, you know." Shane stepped back to let the tall, smirking Russian man into the apartment. "I got away as soon as I could," Rozanov said, his tone less teasing. "Didn't want to draw attention, right?" "Sure." And that was the last word Shane got out before Rozanov's mouth crashed into his. Shane gripped his leather jacket with both hands and pulled him closer as he kissed Rozanov breathless. "How long do you have?" Shane asked quickly when they had broken apart for air. "2 hours, maybe?" This video is intended for adult audiences. He kissed Rozanov again, rough and needy. God, he needed this horrible, fucked up thing. Prologue. You taste like beer, Rozanov said. You taste like that horrible gum you chew. It's so I don't smoke. Shut up. They grappled and maneuvered each other until they reached the bedroom, where Shane shoved Rozanov roughly against a wall and continued kissing him. He felt the familiar slide of his rival's tongue in his mouth and slid his own tongue over teeth that had been fixed and replaced God knows how many times. He wanted a lot tonight, but they didn't have time for a lot. Rozanov grabbed him and pushed him down on the bed. Shane watched the other man drop his jacket on the floor and pull his t-shirt off over his head. A gold chain hung crookedly around Rozanov's neck, the shiny crucifix resting on his left clavicle, just above the famous, ridiculous tattoo of a snarling grizzly bear. For Russia, I had it before playing for Bears. On his chest. Shane would make fun of it later. Right now, all he could do was watch Rozanov strip his clothes off and belatedly realize that he should be doing the same. They both took off everything, and Rozanov fell on top of Shane, kissing him and moving a hand down to grasp his already embarrassingly rigid cock. Shane arched up into his touch, making stupid, desperate noises. "Don't worry, Hollander," Rozanov said, his lips brushing Shane's ear. "I am going to fuck you like you want, yes?" "Yes," Shane exhaled, a mixture of relief and humiliation sweeping through him. Rozanov slid down his body, kissing, sucking, licking, until he reached Shane's cock. He didn't tease any further. He took him into his mouth, and Shane was grateful that they were alone in the building, because his moan echoed throughout the sparsely decorated room. He propped himself up on his elbows so he could watch. Part of him wanted to lie back and close his eyes and let himself believe that it was anyone other than Ilya Rozanov making him feel so good. But most of him wanted to see exactly who it was. Rozanov was a stunning man. Light brown curls that were always a mess fell into his playful hazel eyes and over his dark, thick eyebrows. His strong jaw and cleft chin were covered in stubble. His smile was lopsided and lazy, and his teeth were unnaturally white due to most of them not being real. His nose was crooked, having been broken more than a few times, but the fucking thing only made him look more rugged. And for a Russian living in Boston, his skin was a lot more golden than it had any right to be. Shane fucking hated him. But Rozanov was really good at sucking cock, and he was, for whatever reason, willing. Shane hated this, but he had taken great pains to protect it, and he would continue doing so as long as Rozanov was willing. Their lives being what they are, this was not an easy thing to get. Maybe when they had started 7 years ago, they hadn't expected their lives, their famous rivalry, to get to the point it was at now. Maybe they should have stopped by now. But despite the wrongness of it, this was comfortable, this was familiar, and it was as close to safe as either of them were going to get. That's all it was. Rozanov worked his talented mouth on Shane's cock, and Shane tossed the lube down the bed from the well-stocked nightstand. Rozanov took it without pausing what he was doing, and poured some on his fingers so he could get to work opening Shane up. This was never Shane's favorite part, because he felt so fucking vulnerable. He felt weak and ridiculous every time they were together like this, but he always felt it most acutely when Rozanov had his fingers inside him. As a result, the preparation usually took a while. Rozanov, on the other hand, always seemed completely at ease. He was good at this, and he knew it. He slid his mouth off of Shane's cock with a parting lick to the head that sent a jolt straight through Shane's body, and said, Relax, yeah? There's not much time, but enough. Shane took a deep breath and let it out slowly. He hated that voice so much on the ice, and in the interviews he saw on television where Rozanov mocked him in an obnoxious, teasing tone. But here in this bed, Rozanov's tone was patient and gentle, his voice soft, and the accent wrapped elegantly around boxy English words. Shane relaxed as Rozanov opened him with strong fingers and pressed open-mouthed kisses on the insides of his thighs. When he was ready, Shane wordlessly handed Rozanov a condom before rolling over and getting on his hands and knees. He couldn't look at Rozanov. Not tonight. Not after that humiliating loss. Rozanov seemed to understand. He entered him carefully, not taking him roughly like he had many times in the past. This was slow and considerate. Shane felt big hands on his hips and waist, holding him steady as Rozanov pushed inside. He even felt Rozanov's thumbs brush gently over his lower back. There. This is what you wanted, yes? Yes, because it was. It was what he always wanted. Rozanov started to move, and Shane cried out. It never took long for him to just give in and start moaning and gasping and asking for more. Fuck, Hollander. You love it. Shane responded by turning, I sure, beet red, but he couldn't deny it. Rozanov fucked him hard with one strong hand pressing between his shoulder blades, pressing him down to the mattress. They were both loud, and if he hadn't known the building was empty besides the two of them, Shane would have been worried about it. But he felt safe here, so he let himself go. He cried out with every thrust, and maybe said Rozanov's name a bunch of times. Shane really hoped no one could hear them. When Rozanov reached around to take Shane's cock in his slick hand, Shane became desperate for release and started bucking back against him. This was the point where he was always reminded why he couldn't give this up. It was too good. You gonna come for me, Hollander? Hollander was going to, and he did. He punched the mattress and swore loudly and coated Rozanov's fist with his release. Rozanov picked up speed behind him, sending aftershocks rocketing through Shane's body. Just as it was becoming too much for Shane, Rozanov stilled and cried out in post inside him. Afterwards, they lay on their backs next to each other, and Shane felt the familiar aftermath of guilt and shame creep in. Well, you wanted something tonight, Rozanov mused. God, fuck off. Shane lifted his arm to flip him off, but Rozanov grabbed his wrist and pulled him over, so Shane was on top of his chest, looking down at him. Rozanov's playful smirk faded as he held Shane's gaze, and Shane felt suddenly breathless. Still have that stupid tattoo, I see, Shane said quickly, to distract himself from whatever the fuck was happening. Oh, Rozanov said, the obnoxious little grin returning to his face. He missed you, Shane snorted. He did, Rozanov insisted. Give him a kiss. And he did. He punched the mattress and swore loudly and coated Rozanov's fist with his release. Rozanov picked up speed behind him, sending aftershocks rocketing through Shane's body. Just as it was becoming too much for Shane, Rozanov stilled and cried
Chapter
out
4.
inside him.
The director thanked them both, and the two hockey players were left to get showered and changed in the dingy dressing room. Shane undressed quickly and went into the shower, which was, like most rinks, communal style with a row of shower heads facing each other on both sides of a corridor. If he hurried, maybe he could be out of the shower before Rozanov came in. No such luck. Shane had just gotten his hair wet when Rozanov entered the showers and stood under one almost directly across from him. Shane's eyes landed on the large bear tattoo on Rozanov's left pec. It was absolutely ridiculous. He also noticed the gold crucifix that he guessed the guy never took off. The chain caressed the base of Rozanov's long neck, the cross resting comfortably on his muscular chest. Shane quickly turned his eyes to the floor. He had showered with hundreds of guys in his life, in rooms just like this one. It was just part of the game. He had never looked at any of his fellow players before.
It was just unthinkable. He glanced up again and saw that Rozanov had turned his back to him. Shane was left to stare helplessly at the display of naked, rippling muscle. His eyes trailed over Rozanov's broad shoulders and down the muscles of his back, down to his tapered waist and his... Shane blushed hard. He couldn't... Why would he want to check out another guy's ass? That was just weird. But it was a really impressive ass. Not that he was comparing it to others. It was just perfect. And as Rozanov scrubbed water over his face, the muscles in his ass flexed, and Shane was transfixed and aroused, visibly aroused, in a shower with Rozanov. He only had time to look down at his thickening cock with horror before he noticed that Rozanov had turned back around. Rozanov glanced down at Shane's crotch and raised an eyebrow. "Fuck off," Shane grumbled. "It's nothing." "Like what you see, Hollander?" "No, it's not. I was thinking about something else." Shane should have just left the showers then. He was clean enough. This was torture. But Rozanov was grinning at him in a way that was not helping Shane's situation. And Shane didn't seem to have the ability to move. Rozanov was teasing him, but he wasn't punching him in the face, and he wasn't leaving either. Shane wished he could at least make himself look away from Rozanov, but he was spellbound. Rozanov just seemed to be considering him curiously, and maybe enjoying the effect he knew he was having on him. Another goddamn thing for you to hold over me, Shane thought. He was so busy being mortified that he didn't immediately notice that Rozanov's own dick was starting to swell. The grin had faded from Rozanov's face. His eyes were full of an intensity that was much more heated than what Shane had been facing during their photo shoot. Shane needed to get out of here. This was too bizarre. He absolutely could not do whatever this was. But Rozanov let a hand trail down his stomach and wrapped it around his own dick to give it a slow, firm stroke. Shane gasped, loud enough that the running water couldn't mask it. "What were you thinking about?" Rozanov asked, his voice low. Shane swallowed. His throat was bone dry. "You," he said quietly. Rozanov heard him and smirked. He gave himself another stroke. "You want to touch me, Hollander?" Shane actually just wanted to watch Rozanov jerk himself off. But, "Not here," Shane stammered. "Someone could come in." Rozanov nodded and released himself. He turned and shut off the water. Shane waited, heart racing, until Rozanov had left the showers before he turned off his own water. What the hell was happening? Rozanov couldn't possibly be suggesting that he and Shane, that they... Holy shit, Shane had to get out of here. He wondered if he could possibly smash through the tile wall of the shower room and escape that way. Anything would be preferable to facing Rozanov again.
Shane needed to get out of here. This was too bizarre. He absolutely could not do whatever this was.
Shane spent the evening freaking the fuck out in his hotel room. He considered his options. He could leave, just go out for a few hours so he wouldn't be there when Rozanov knocked. That would be the sensible thing to do. He could stay and just ignore Rozanov's knock. There could be something satisfying in that. Give him a little bit of power over it. He could open the door when he knocked, invite him in, and they could talk about this whole ridiculous misunderstanding. Then they could go their separate ways forever. Or he could open the door and he could spend the evening exploring Rozanov's body with his mouth. Shane blushed just thinking about it. He couldn't really want that, could he? He had more or less decided on the second option. He would talk to Rozanov. They would put this behind them as quickly as possible so things wouldn't be weird when the season started. He tidied up the room, even though it was already perfectly tidy. He changed his shirt to a nicer one for no reason at all. He brushed his teeth, flossed, and rinsed with mouthwash, because if he was going to be talking to Rozanov, it would be rude to have bad breath. He fixed his hair a bit. He switched his phone to silent mode. He decided to turn on the television, just so it wouldn't look like he'd just been sitting there staring at the door. He flipped to a baseball game and turned the sound down low. He shut off the overhead light and turned on all of the lamps. He checked himself in the mirror. Again. The knock came at 7 minutes after 9 o'clock. Shane checked the peephole just to make sure Rozanov wasn't pranking him or anything. It was just Rozanov, alone. Shane turned off the television because having it on suddenly seemed dumb. He opened the door and let Rozanov in. Rozanov looked like he may have put a little effort into his appearance, too. He was wearing a black button-up shirt, his gold chain winking at Shane from the wide-open collar. His hair, which was usually a mess of curls, had been tamed a bit, though one lock had already escaped and was tumbling adorably onto Rozanov's forehead. "Thought you might have chickened out," Rozanov said in his infuriatingly blunt manner. "No," Shane said. "I mean, I just want to talk about, you know." "I do know. Yes. Do you want to sit, maybe?" Rozanov took a step toward him. Not really. He was so close that Shane could feel the heat of his body. Or maybe he was imagining it. "I don't think this is a good idea," Shane said weakly. "What?" Rozanov said, tucking a knuckle under Shane's chin and tilting it up. "This?" He brought his mouth down on Shane's, and Shane flooded with panic. He was stiff against Rozanov, lips pressed together, eyes open, but Rozanov persisted. Shane felt the tip of Rozanov's tongue trace the outline of his lips, seeking entry. Long fingers threaded into his hair, and Shane surrendered. He parted his lips and closed his eyes, and Rozanov deepened the kiss, pushing between his lips and pressing his tongue to Shane's. Shane had never kissed a man, and somewhere in the back of his splintering brain, he wondered if Rozanov ever had either. He certainly seemed to know what he was doing. Shane felt like he was made of alarm bells, like his panic was going to somehow wake up the entire hotel. If it was just that he was kissing a man, he might be able to get a grip. But kissing this man in particular was so absurd and wrong. But his dick didn't seem to think so, especially not when Rozanov wedged a knee between his legs and rubbed a thigh against Shane's arousal. Shane whimpered, and Rozanov tipped his head back farther, using his height and coming down hard on Shane's open mouth. Shane wasn't sure what to do. He hesitantly slid his palms up Rozanov's chest. He heard Rozanov give a soft moan when Shane's fingers moved over his nipples, and that one little sound made Shane lose any remaining self-control. He kissed Rozanov back, hard and frantic, and wanting more, but not knowing exactly what to ask for. Rozanov crowded him back against a wall and started unbuttoning Shane's shirt. When he got the last button open, he grabbed Shane's hand and pressed it against his crotch. And Shane had his hand on Ilya Rozanov's dick. Shane could feel the solid length straining against Rozanov's jeans, and he felt his own cock grow harder, even as he struggled against freaking out. He gripped Rozanov through the denim, and one clear idea of what he wanted popped into his head. He wanted the denim barrier to be gone. He wanted to see Rozanov's cock and hold it and feel it pressed against him, which was weird. He shouldn't want that. He shouldn't want any of this. And yet, with a goal in mind, Shane unfastened Rozanov's fly and worked his hand inside. When Shane had his hand wrapped around the thick, smooth length, Rozanov inhaled sharply and stopped kissing. Both men looked down to watch Shane's hand move under the cotton of Rozanov's briefs. Shane could see the tip of Rozanov's cock poking out of the waistband, and he had the sudden wild urge to kiss it, to press his tongue to the slit and taste him. Fuck, this was really gay. Rozanov didn't seem troubled, though. Instead, he was pulling his own shirt off and reaching to cradle Shane's face with his hand. Shane turned his eyes up, and Rozanov was looking down at Shane with dark eyes, his mouth slack and lips swollen. His face was pure desire. Shane stood frozen as Rozanov dragged his thumb over Shane's lips and then gently pushed it inside. Shane closed his eyes and sucked it into his mouth, letting his tongue wrap around it. He was shocked at how naturally he did this, by how much he loved the sensation. He felt Rozanov shudder, and Shane felt lightheaded. He wasn't sure how long longer he could stay standing. He wondered if Rozanov would let him, if he wanted him to. Shane released Rozanov's thumb and slowly sank to his knees.
Fuck, he heard Rozanov breathe. Shane knew there would be no going back from this, but they'd probably already crossed that line anyway. May as well take what he wanted. With shaking hands, he pulled Rozanov's jeans and briefs down and lined up his mouth with his thick, rigid cock. He took a breath and very carefully pressed his tongue to the head. Yes, Hollander, Rozanov hissed. It tasted like skin. Shane slowly moved his tongue around the head, completely unsure what to do. He liked to be excellent at everything. His only experience with this sort of thing had been on the receiving end, so he tried to mimic what some of those girls had done. He took Rozanov deeper into his mouth, and it felt so weird. He just sort of stayed that way for a moment, his tongue flattened by the weight of Rozanov's cock. He knew he must look ridiculous. Rozanov's expression didn't suggest he was watching something ridiculous. He held Shane's face with one big hand and gazed down at Shane with hooded eyes. He murmured something in Russian and then said, "Look at you." Shane's face flushed. An image flashed into his mind of their roles being reversed. What would Rozanov look like on his knees, taking Shane in his mouth? Would Shane ever find out? Shane moaned involuntarily, which made Rozanov shudder. His thumb brushed Shane's cheekbone, and Shane closed his eyes and began to move his mouth. He sucked and licked, letting himself get used to the sensation of having a dick in his mouth. His mind was racing, worrying about technique and about what exactly this all meant. But then Rozanov's fingers were tangled in Shane's hair, and Shane was reminded that this was fucking hot, that he'd fantasized about exactly this, alone in his bedroom, even if he had been embarrassed afterwards. He sighed around Rozanov's cock and bobbed his head a little, losing himself in the slide of rigid flesh against his tongue. He's sure he was doing a terrible job, and his fears were confirmed when Rozanov suddenly yelped, "Stop! Stop! Stop!" Shane pulled off quickly and stared up at Rozanov, who was grimacing with his eyes squeezed shut. "Sorry, I've never..." Rozanov laughed. "He's okay." He waved a hand around, as if he was trying to physically grab the English word he was looking for. It was too much. Oh, really? Shane felt that he had barely done anything. Just, very, overwhelming? Intense? Wrong? Shane could think of a few words, but he didn't want to guess at what Rozanov was feeling. "A lot," Rozanov finished. Then he made a frustrated sound. "No, I cannot think of work." Shane rose off his knees because he felt foolish staying on them if he wasn't going to be doing anything down there. When he was standing, he looked curiously at Rozanov.
Rozanov made the decision for him. This is a bit not fair. He moved a hand through the air, back and forth between them. "You want me to..." "Yes, let me see you. You've already seen me in the shower. I want a better look." Shane removed his clothes quickly. Being naked in the presence of other guys was not foreign to him, but there was nothing familiar about this scenario. He stood in his underwear for a moment, then tried not to blush as he removed them. Shane stood with his arms out. "Well?" Rozanov grinned and waved a hand over his own chest. "So smooth. Look, like a swimmer. It's natural, all right? Yes, come here." Rozanov patted the bed next to him. Shane blew out a breath and moved onto the bed. He lay flat on his back next to Rozanov, unsure of what to do next. "What do you want?" Rozanov asked. "I don't know." "No?" Rozanov asked, and he leaned over him and kissed him. "Nothing? What about..." Rozanov pressed a palm against Shane's erection and curled gentle fingers around it. "Okay?" Shane nodded. It was shockingly okay for Ilya Rozanov, a guy, a hockey player, his rival, to have his hand wrapped around Shane's dick. "Relax," Rozanov said, and kissed him again. His hand stroked Shane carefully, without lube, and Shane was spellbound. Rozanov's soft, accented words and his gentle hands and his confident kisses were all working together to ensnare him.
Dizzy with sensation and lust, Shane lightly pushed on Rozanov's shoulder until he was flat on his back. Then, before he could talk himself out of it, Shane slid down his body and took his cock into his mouth again. He wasn't any surer of his abilities, but he knew what he wanted. He wanted to get Rozanov off. He wanted to take him apart. He let his jaw slacken and took Rozanov as deep as he could. He was nervous about biting him by accident, so he kept his mouth open wider than was probably necessary and used a lot of tongue. It was sloppy and very wet, but he could hear the encouraging sounds Rozanov was making. When Shane turned his eyes up, he could see Rozanov had propped himself up on his elbows and was watching him give his first blowjob with great interest. Shane wrapped a hand around the base of Rozanov's cock and stroked up to meet his mouth. When Rozanov arched and moaned, Shane repeated it, stroking him hard and fast. Hollander, fuck. Rozanov switched to Russian, and Shane didn't know what he was saying, but he figured he should probably get out of the way because he wasn't sure he was ready to take a load in his mouth. He pulled off just in time. Rozanov put his own hand on his dick to replace Shane's mouth and stroked himself roughly until his release fell all over his own stomach. Shane stared, dumbfounded. It was the hottest thing he had ever seen. Rozanov flopped back on the bed, breathing hard. "Not bad, Hollander," he said. Shane was still staring at the mess on Rozanov's stomach. His own cock was like iron. He thought about stroking himself until he came on Rozanov. He thought about Rozanov putting his mouth on him. "Okay, well, good night," Rozanov said, and moved to get up. Shane's mouth dropped open, and he was about to be furious when he noticed the playful, crooked grin. "Fuck you," Shane said. "Did you need something?" Rozanov asked innocently. Shane glared at him. Rozanov chuckled and grabbed some tissues from the nightstand so he could wipe his stomach off a bit. "Lie down," Rozanov instructed. Shane did. Rozanov crawled on top of him and kissed him. "You think I'm an asshole? You are an asshole. I would not leave you like that." "No?" He kissed him again. "No." As they kissed, Rozanov reached a hand down and gripped Shane's cock. Shane gasped into his mouth. "Let me show you," Rozanov murmured, "how to do this." He kissed his way down Shane's body, which felt so good that Shane forgot to be insulted. When he reached Shane's cock, Rozanov greeted it with a long, slow lick with the entire surface of his tongue, like it was a fucking ice cream cone or something. "Jesus," Shane shuddered. Rozanov licked and sucked the head, tonguing the slit and pushing Shane dangerously close to the edge already. He gripped the hotel bed comforter and tried to hold on. Rozanov was shockingly good at this. How many fucking times had he met up with the coach's son? Shane felt like he should be paying attention, maybe taking notes, but his brain had left the room. Shane reached down to run his fingers through the golden brown curls of Rozanov's hair. He dragged his fingers down over the stubble in his cheek, the sharp line of his jaw. Shane had enjoyed watching some truly hot girls sucking him off in the past, but this was beyond anything he had ever experienced before. Watching this big, beautiful man who knew exactly what to do with his tongue and lips, and, God, his teeth, work him like there would be a medal awarded for performance. "Oh, God, Rozanov, I'm gonna..." He expected Rozanov to get the hell out of the way, but instead he sucked him harder, and Shane emptied himself into his mouth. A stream of nonsense fell out of Shane's mouth. "Holy shit. I'm sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Fuck. Wow. God." Rozanov pulled off, not at all hurried, and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. He laughed at Shane's babbling. "Sorry? Why sorry?" Shane choked out a hysterical laugh. "I don't know. I wasn't expecting you to..." Rozanov shrugged as if he was thanking him for bringing in the mail. "I don't mind it." Shane felt stupid that he hadn't even tried to properly finish the job on Rozanov. This guy was determined to one-up him at every turn. Rozanov sat on the edge of the bed with his back to Shane. He rolled his neck and idly rubbed his jaw. Shane sat up and swung his legs over the opposite side of the bed. He gripped the mattress with both hands and looked at the floor. He felt panic surge up in him again. He heard Rozanov blow out a breath, which made Shane laugh for some reason. The absurdity of the situation was hitting him. You're laughing? Yeah, well, this whole thing is a little nuts. I want a cigarette. You're not allowed to smoke in the hotel. I know. Stupid country. Rozanov sighed. Doesn't matter. Bears told me to quit. I am trying to not smoke. Oh, that's good. Smoking is bad for you. Is it? Shane could hear Rozanov's eyes rolling. So, Shane said, still keeping his back to Rozanov. This won't leave this room, okay? You think I will tell people? Shane sincerely doubted it. No. He felt the bed shift as Rozanov stood up. Shane had the stupid urge to ask him to stay. He imagined falling asleep in his arms. And what the fuck? This thing they just did was, above all things, a huge mistake. As far as hookups went, Shane really could not have chosen a less appropriate person. And even forgetting that, there was no reason to pretend this was anything more than a quick, no-strings fuck. And why would Shane even want to pretend that? He didn't. He wanted Rozanov out of his hotel room. He wanted to forget that this ever happened. He did not want to reach for him, to pull him back on the bed, to do everything they just did 2 or 3 more times. When Rozanov was fully dressed, he gave Shane one of his playful, crooked smiles. Shane had managed to put his underwear back on, but other than that, was still naked. My flight is early tomorrow. There was maybe a note of apology in it, or maybe I was imagining things. All right. Rozanov nodded. I'll see you around. Yeah, I'll see you on the ice, I guess. Yes. Shane wanted to kiss him one more time, because he was sure he would never get the chance again. But Rozanov was already opening the door. Goodbye, Hollander. Bye, Shane said, to the closed door.
Was, above all things, a huge mistake. As far as hookups went, Shane really could not have chosen a less appropriate person.
Ilya wasn't surprised at all when the knock came.
There was no reason
it was late, after midnight. He had been back in his room for almost 2 hours.
Why would Shane even
Hollander pushed into the room as soon as Ilya opened the door. He turned and flipped the bar latch as if someone was going to burst in at any moment.
He did not want to reach for him.
Is there a ghost out there? Ilya asked,
everything they just did.
No, fuck you. This is fucking dangerous, and you know it.
Fully dressed,
is it? We're not doing anything. Hollander looked at him hard. His dark eyes were a mixture of anger and lust. Ilya decided to drop the act. You came anyway,
There was maybe
he
a
said.
note of apology
Yeah,
in it, or
Hollander
maybe I was
said, his
imagining
voice
things.
tight and full of forced courage. I guess I
nodded.
did. Ilya nodded, and then Hollander swore under his breath and lunged forward to kiss him.
Yes.
He grabbed Ilya's t-shirt in a tight fist and pulled him closer. Ilya moaned at the hot slide of Hollander's tongue against his. He tugged roughly on the hair at the back of Hollander's head, tipping his head back so he could deepen the kiss. They broke apart, and Hollander looked at him, eyes wild and dark hair a mess, silently begging for instruction. On your knees, Ilya said softly, just to see what he would do. Expecting Hollander to tell him to fuck off, Ilya's breath caught in his throat as he watched him sink fluidly to the floor. He gazed up at Ilya. Those onyx eyes, always so sharp, were hazy with desire. Hollander leaned forward to nuzzle and mouth at the bulge in Ilya's sweatpants. Christ, Hollander, Ilya breathed, gently pulling at Hollander's hair as he pressed hot, open-mouthed kisses to the fabric that pulled tight over Ilya's erection. He felt dizzy and less in control than he wanted to be, as Hollander tucked fingers into Ilya's waistband and pulled down until Ilya's cock was freed. Hollander didn't hesitate. He dragged his tongue up the length before wrapping his lips around the head and sinking down.
Ilya couldn't make a smart remark. He just gasped and let his head fall back, completely overwhelmed by Hollander's need for this. He certainly didn't have the ability to conjure English words right now. Hollander reached a hand up and slid it, fingers splayed, under the hem of Ilya's t-shirt. He pushed the shirt up until Ilya took the hint and pulled it off over his head. He carefully stepped out of his sweatpants, Hollander's mouth never leaving him, and planted a hand on the back of Hollander's head. He was careful not to hold him too firmly in place. This wasn't control. Ilya just wanted to touch him, to let the silky strands of his hair slip through his fingers as Hollander gave in to what he had clearly been craving. Hollander's hands wandered as he sucked him. His touch was light and curious, his fingertips almost tickling Ilya as he explored his thighs and hips and around to his ass. Ilya wondered how far Hollander was willing to go with him, anything with another this time. The desperate, unskilled motion of his mouth and the slight tremble in his hands suggested that he hadn't. The idea that Ilya was probably the only one who ever saw him like this, that he was the only person in the entire fucking world who knew what it felt like to have those pretty pink lips wrapped around his cock. Ilya swore in Russian and pulled away. He grabbed Hollander by the front of his shirt and hauled him up, kissing him roughly before throwing him on the bed. He wanted to know how much he would give him tonight. Hollander stared up at him, eyes wild, lips dark and wet and parted. His hair